What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the Sooners on SI podcast, formerly the SI Sooners podcast, formerly the All Sooners podcast. Have we got a massive show for you guys today? Guys, it is episode 300 on the podcast. Holy cow. How the heck did we get to episode 300? Well, I'm going to tell you how. Coming right up. You guys on video already see it, but just wait till you hear the voice. If you're on audio only, this is going to be awesome. I just want to say I appreciate all you guys. A lot of you have listened to all 300. Some of you have watched all 300. So thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it so much. That, of course, is Ryan Chapman. I'm John Hoover. Let me just say, it seems appropriate, guys, that we are doing it big today because it's supposed to be a bye week. It's supposed to be an open date. And here we are. Probably the busiest week of the year, an incredible week. Ryan, I can't remember the last time we had this much breaking news.
It was yesterday was chaotic for the entire state of Oklahoma. It was chaotic for us. It was chaotic for all of our friends on the Oklahoma and Oklahoma State beat. It was chaotic for anyone in radio. And suddenly we shift. We were going to be celebrating 300 episodes, all that stuff with some very special guests, but now we will still celebrate by breaking down the news with some very special guests.
That's right. Before we get into the hard stuff, the breaking news, now listen, don't skip this part. Don't hit the 30-second skip because this is important. I started this podcast in late summer of 2020 during the COVID shutdown. That was no fun, I can assure you. I transitioned from working at the franchise and doing the daily Locked On Sooners podcast to publishing the website, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com, and doing this podcast a couple times a week, which has been fun. And somehow we've made it work for 300 episodes. Well, I'll tell you how we've made it work. We've been tremendously blessed with an incredibly talented, hardworking, enthusiastic staff for the last 5 years. I've been super lucky. That's how we've made it work. So to commemorate our 300th show today, guys, we are throwing it way back to the very beginning. We're bringing back all of the full-timers who helped build this thing over the years. Pretty much the three dudes who helped me get this thing off the ground or make it kind of the powerhouse that it is today. That's right. Like I said, on video, you guys already see him. That's Parker Thune. Josh Callaway and Randall Sweet are all going to be on the pod today. Can't wait. This is going to be so much fun. We're going to talk John Mateer. We're going to talk Michael Hawkins. We're going to talk, the SEC schedule. We're going to talk OU's 4-0 start. Everything else that's been going around in Norman for the last, 2 months. And when we wrap things up with these guys, here's the trick. We're going to bring in the contemporary crew, right, of Carson Field and Aber, Ryan Aber from formerly the Oklahoman. They're going to help us break down the rest of how 2025 is going to go. We'll talk a little Mike Gundy. We'll talk some softball news, so don't go anywhere. That's why I scheduled a little getaway this weekend. I don't know if I told you guys. A little drive out to the West Coast. I'm going to go see the Rams play at SoFi. It's the busiest week of the year. It's a stupid open date. But without further ado, episode 300, let's kick this thing off with the one and only Parker Thune. Parker, my man, welcome in.
John, has it really been 5 years, man?
Yeah.
5 years since we were just getting this thing off the ground?
Unbelievable.
Crazy it's been that long. Did you say you're driving out to the West Coast?
Have you seen my social media hashtag just drive? I can't take that stance and then go fly out to the West Coast.
Fair enough. That's a long drive. Drive. Stay safe. You're not doing it solo, are you?
Yeah, I am, of course.
Oh, okay. All right then. Hope you got your caffeine fix.
No problem. Got my Sports Illustrated on SI cup filled with caffeine, ready to go.
I tell you, your setup looks the exact same as it did when we were doing this back in the summer of 2020 when there was nothing going on.
Go on YouTube.
Things have changed since then. That has not.
Yeah, go on YouTube, you guys, and look at the whatever the heck we called ourselves back then, All Sooners podcast. Some of those early episodes where Parker's in like a window. Before we could do the split screen. It was awesome, man. It was awesome. Parker, of course, is the co-publisher at OUinsider.com. He's co-host with Mike Steely on the KREF. You can find him on Twitter at Parker Thune. I just want to say this. He's one of the most gifted and hardest working people I know. And when you combine those two things with, good looks and charm, right? You get the one and only Parker Thune. Parker and I was ready to. I think I got hired in March 2020. Been around for a couple of months trying to do it myself, and it wasn't until June 2020 when I was able to hire Parker. And we had conversed by email, by phone, by Twitter. He was heading back to school, I believe, at OU from Omaha for his final semester, final year. So we arranged this quick meeting at Quick Trip, Parker, 51st and Yale in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we finally got to shake hands. He signed the contract and we're off and running.
I need to correct you on the timeline there because it was March of 2020 that you hired me as well. So
March? Was it March?
It was March because it was the weekend of St. Patrick's Day where I met you. It was probably 30 degrees outside.
That's right.
Outside a Quick Trip in Tulsa on my way back because I had gone home for spring break. And so I was on my way back to Norman, coming back from the spring break trip that me and a buddy took back to my homeland of Nebraska.
That's it.
And yeah, I think it was March 19th.
March 19th
was the day we officially met to exchange the contractual documents.
So my solo efforts were only about 2 weeks. I seem to remember they were more like 5 or 6 years. They felt like 6 months at the minimum, but yeah, a couple of weeks. Wow. Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you for clarifying that because my memory has been cloudy. So anyway, I'm flying blind on this thing, which is sometimes the best way to fly when you're flying as fast as we were in those early days. I think you only worked for me, Parker, for about 6 months, 5 or 6 months. But that first year, if you think about it, with the COVID protocols, all the crap that we had to go through, we got good at this thing, Parker, real fast.
We had to. Yeah, it was 9 months. It was March till mid-December.
Okay.
And it felt like an eternity, man, in part because the days were passing so slow when we were in lockdown. There were no sports, no real action to speak of, nothing actively happening outside of recruiting. That was the one thing that was going on because that's always going on. I mean, the OU staff, you got to keep the talent pipeline flowing. And so at that time, they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we accommodate guys that want to take visits but can't because of restrictions? How do we put together a virtual visit experience? How do we make sure that we're building a 2021 recruiting class without being able to host guys in person? So thankfully, we had recruiting during that time, and that was the bulk of what I did until the football season finally kicked off in mid-September of 2020.
Well, you got, if I'm not mistaken, your star rose because of recruiting that year because you, A, were in on the Sooner Summit. You were on the ground floor. And then B, you were also with Caleb Williams out in Nashville at the Elite 11. It was just a handful of people. They wouldn't let you guys on the field. You had to sit up in the stands, all that kind of stuff. So many restrictions, and yet you were ringside for those two huge events in OU football history.
To this day, I have no idea how I managed to get a credential for that Elite 11 because they literally only credentialed maybe 5 or 6 national recruiting reporters, and then oddly me and my college roommate Spencer Forsyth. I don't know how we made it through the filter because they denied a lot of team-specific reporters.
Wow.
Somehow, I think we were the only team-specific reporters / personnel that were credentialed to cover that event. So we snuck through somehow. It was a phenomenal event. And yes, that is kind of where my work started to get acknowledged for the first time. I had probably like 400 followers on Twitter at that point.
Nice.
We've come a long way.
Yeah, we have. Let's dive right into the news, Parker. You've been touting the qualities and characteristics of a young man by the name of Michael Hawkins for something like 3 years now, going on 3 years. You've been around him a lot. You've been around his family. You've covered him for a long time. We got to see what freshman Michael Hawkins looks like last year, and there were times he was a little overwhelmed. Maybe he was overwhelmed at times by the lack of talent that was around him and in the coaching box. But what do you think now of sophomore Michael Hawkins with John Mateer on the shelf? Had surgery this morning on his thumb, successful apparently. How do you think Hawkins will respond, and how much different will he be this year than this time last year?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, John, you have to look at the supporting cast that's going to be around Michael Hawkins this year compared to what he had last year. If memory serves me correctly, the starting wide receivers for the Red River Shootout last year that Michael Hawkins was dealing the ball to were Zion Reagans, Brennan Thompson, and J.J. Hester.
Yeah.
And so, needless to say, The suite of skill position weapons that he's going to be working with this time around is going to be far superior than that hamstrung core that he was tossing the ball to a season ago. Obviously, the offensive line is much healthier and much more talented. The backfield is kind of the big question right now for Oklahoma. Torrey Blaylock has been good. Jaden Ott has been invisible. And then you have Javante Barnes and Xavier Robinson that thus far have kind of just been ho-hum. So that's the one thing that Oklahoma needs to get figured out is the backfield. But, man, Michael Hawkins, I'll say this much. He has made demonstrable strides this offseason from where he was a season ago. And, you know, first time I saw this kid play, he was a sophomore in high school back in November of 2021. I want to say. And the one thing that Michael Hawkins has always had is just superb football instinct, which you have to have if you're going to play the quarterback position effectively. And he has that. He's always had that. That's just innate to who he is. But as a processor, as a thrower, and as a leader, he's come a long, long way this offseason. That's due in no small part to the influence of Ben Arbuckle, John Kicheski, and Blaze Benson, the whole brain trust on the Oklahoma offensive staff, and specifically the group that deals with the quarterbacks. So is there going to be a drop-off from John Mateer's level of play? Yeah, you know, I think the consensus opinion would be that there will be, but I don't think that's a foregone conclusion at all, especially with the knowledge that Giovanni Gibson's coming back. Michael Hawkins is the type of guy, and he's got the type of experience at this point that you would imagine he's going to be capable of keeping the train on the tracks until John Mateer gets back, whenever that may be.
Something you mentioned that I think is key too. Last year, they had the bye week going into the Texas game, but the bye week with no quarterback coach and a staff that came out, and there's a reason it was one of Seth Luttrell's last games. It was like an absolutely arrogant, boneheaded game plan to run straight into Texas's strengths. We saw already, Parker, what Ben Arbuckle got to do with the whole offseason to prepare for Michigan. They're going to say all the right things because they're pros and all that. They'll do a courtesy walkthrough for Kent State. This is all about a 2-week lead up to either work on yourselves or work on Texas with Ben Arbuckle and the entire brain trust you just spoke about.
Yeah, amen to that. I mean, you could start Whit Neubauer, Jet New against Kent State, and you're going to win that game handily. I mean, that team is horrendous. Their only win of the year, they're 1-3. Their only win was a 21-17 barn burner against Merrimack College. I didn't even know they had a football program. So you're not going to have to worry about Kent State. It'll be a good tune-up opportunity, not only for Michael Hawkins, but also for the aforementioned Giovanni Gibson and Eli Bowen, ESPN freshman All-American last year. Who's going to be making his season debut in that football game. So this all comes at a very opportune juncture for Oklahoma. If this had to happen, it came at about as convenient a time as it could have possibly happened for OU. And I will say this, like obviously most Oklahoma fans do and should hope that John Mateer is healthy and active for the Texas game. But if he's not, I don't know that there's an individual in that locker room that's going to be more personally motivated to get their lick back against Texas than Michael Hawkins.
Yeah, 34-3 last year. He did not have a good game. Like you said, didn't have good talent around him. Now on Mateer, Parker, I've heard best case scenario, you know, perfect surgery, easy fix, immediate and aggressive rehab, that kind of stuff. I've heard best case scenario, he's going to miss at least a month. That's 4 weeks. So you're talking the bye week, we think, even though it's Wednesday. Might linger into the end of that. Kent State, you're talking Texas, and you're talking South Carolina. So what's the latest you're hearing on Mateer?
Yeah, so what I've heard in that regard is that the expectation ought to be he doesn't play against Texas. Is it a possibility? It certainly is. The stars kind of have to align perfectly for that to happen. And OU obviously contracted the best of the best to handle this surgery, Dr. Stephen Shin out in Los Angeles. And so you do have absolute top-of-the-line personnel and absolutely top-of-the-line surgeon handling this procedure. And so if nothing else, that gives you a chance of having Mateer active for the Red River Shootout. I think that's to expect that he is going to be available for the Red River Shootout is a little bit rosy, a little bit on the optimistic side for my taste. But from everything I've heard, the target date, the reasonable target date would be that South Carolina game, October 18th, with the understanding that if everything goes perfectly, flawlessly, maybe you get him back for the Red River Shootout on the 11th.
Yeah. And if not South Carolina, then maybe October 25th, Ole Miss.
And South Carolina is another one of those opponents where, if you don't have Mateer active, Michael Hawkins is going to feel like he's got something to prove against those boys based on what happened last year and what became his final regular season start for OU.
100. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, it'll. We can't rule out though, as Jamar Chase once said. Jamar Chase believes he's Wolverine. We've seen Adrian Peterson injury timeline stuff like that. So that's what's made this so weird. Is like I know everyone's plucked at Jared Goff or Rourke from Indiana last year. They're all thumb injury stuff like that. But I cautioned everyone like every human's different, every healing process is different, and we also don't know the specifics on the Rourke injury or the Jared Goff as it pertains to Mateer.
Right. Yeah.
And we probably will not know those specifics in all actuality. It is worth noting, though, that, Mateer played the last 3.5 quarters of that football game against Auburn with that thumb injury.
Yep.
So he's the type of dude that's going to be inclined to gut it out. If he feels like he has a chance to play against Texas, he's going to make every effort to play against Texas. Whether the medical staff will consent to letting him give it a try if he's less than 100%, we'll see. But I think after Saturday, if nothing else, John Mateer's a warrior who's going to play if he can play, and it's in his hands.
You love the toughness. Now, Parker, I wrote yesterday in a group text. I said to our Sooners on SI group, this right here is why Oklahoma joined the SEC. How about that schedule for the next 4 years? Oh my God! And the best part, I didn't even realize they were going to do this until yesterday. They're rotating 2026 and 2028, then flipping 2027 and 2029. Genius. Absolutely genius. I love this schedule.
Couple of fun road trips next year, huh?
Yeah,
going to Athens, going to Gainesville. I love the Swamp, man. I've been to the Swamp a couple times over the years.
Don't forget Ann Arbor.
And Ann Arbor. You're right.
What a year.
I'm specifically excited for that trip to Gainesville. You would expect that Florida's going to have a new head football coach at that point, so who knows what that team looks like in a competitive sense. But that is a bucket list destination for any college football fan. Ben Hill-Griffin Stadium. It's a trip that if you can make it, you should make it. So stoked for that, stoked for Oklahoma to get out to Athens, Sanford Stadium as well. And then, again, you get a really fun non-conference trip in Michigan as well. Those are the highlights in my mind of that 2026 slate.
Yeah, you got a couple of, obviously all the slates in conference, but you throw in the next couple of years, an at SMU, an at Houston into what are really, really fun SEC slates. I can't wait for that. Although I got to say, boys, if I just, I don't need to go to Starkville. I don't need the cowbells. I don't need any of it. I don't care about the getting assaulted by Kenny Dillingham's assessment of the hotel properties in Stark Vegas.
I don't know, man. I got nothing to say, nothing unkind to say about Stark Vegas. As a former SEC beat writer who traveled throughout the SEC for 2 years, the only trip I missed was Kentucky and Georgia, and I'm so glad I get to do the Georgia trip next year. But yeah, Starkville's fine. It is. It's not Oxford. Sorry, Bulldog fans, but it's not. Parker, let's talk about the future. We have not come here to bury Michael Hawkins, right? But let's do it this way. OU had risen to number 7 in the poll. It doesn't mean anything. It's just an opinion poll of some AP voters. But I think you saw what the expectations were, at least externally, for this program. Number 7 in the country. Hey, that's really good. What's the upside now? College football playoff still, 10 wins still. Can Hawkins beat Texas? Does the defense have to carry even more of this burden? Does the running game that you talked about, does that ever get going behind that offensive line? How far does Brent Venables take this in year 4?
Man, it's an interesting question. And, I was asked yesterday by a friend immediately upon the news of Mateer's surgery breaking, how worried should I be, scale of 1 to 10? And my answer was, as far as the Texas game is considered, probably like 7 out of 10. Not having Mateer available, that certainly levels the playing field a little bit, because I think most feel like watching the first 4 weeks of college football action, okay, Mateer is far superior to Arch Manning. Now, I don't know whether we have as much data to be able to make that judgment with Michael Hawkins and Arch Manning. We shall see. But Yeah, if you're an Oklahoma fan, there's obviously a greater degree of worry about the Texas game specifically. But long term, this doesn't do a whole lot to alter Oklahoma's overall outlook as far as whether this team can make a run to the college football playoff. Because with that schedule, as tough as it is, and with the Sooners having already passed the first two litmus tests with a home win over Michigan and a home win over Auburn, if you go 9-3, I don't know if you're in, but it's certainly a conversation on Selection Sunday. There's a conversation being had about your resume and how it stacks up against some of the other at-large resumes. And so, man, I think Michael Hawkins gives you more than a chance to win against Texas because, again, I think this guy is one of the better backup quarterbacks, if not the best backup quarterback across college football. To have a guy like that sitting there as your QB2 ready for such a moment as this is such a luxury because, make no mistake, I know this for a fact. Last season, when that campaign wrapped and the Sooners put the finishing touches on a 6-6 regular season, there were several big-time programs across the country that were working the back channels to see if they could go acquire Michael Hawkins. And so he is very well regarded across the country by some of the top programs in America for what he brings to the table in terms of his natural talent and his ability to lead an offense. And so I feel as though this game, the Red River Shootout in particular, if it is indeed Michael Hawkins starting, first off, he's not going to have to do a ton. He's not going to have to put the team on his shoulders in order for them to win with as well as this defense is playing. And all he's really got to do is outplay Arch Manning. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Can Michael Hawkins outplay Arch Manning? I think the challenge is as simple as that. And I think there are plenty of Oklahoma fans, plenty of folks on the OU side, and even plenty of folks that are just looking at this neutrally that would tend to favor Michael Hawkins over Arch Manning. We'll see how we're feeling after the Kent State game. But if we get a Hawkins-Manning matchup in the Cotton Bowl on October 11th, I don't hate Oklahoma's chances, not one bit.
Here's something interesting too. Let's say Mrs. Texas game back for South Carolina from it's here and they pick up and go. Parker, that 9-3 scenario, if it includes like a loss to Texas, that's a spot where I think preseason we all would have said that would be a very interesting case being made on Selection Sunday. We saw it didn't go Alabama's way, didn't go Ole Miss's way a year ago. That case is made more interesting when we know the committee has had conversations before about, well, you didn't have your star player in this game, but they're back now, and they almost are happy to like retroactively be like, well, they might have won that game with John Mateer. Is this actually a 10-2? Like, so you don't get blown out. It adds an extra even layer to all of the controversy if it gets to that point and it's 9-3 and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, that will work in Oklahoma's favor. And all in all, like, let's say worst case scenario comes to fruition. OU loses to Texas. I mean, they're not going to lose to Kent State, right? But let's say they lose to Texas. They're sitting in 5-1 at the midseason mark. At that point, are OU fans displeased with that? When you're zooming out and looking at that from the big picture perspective, big picture viewpoint, to have beaten Michigan and Auburn and then to have lost to Texas with your backup quarterback, is that a half bad start to the 2025 season? Is that not a start that has you confident this team will contend for a playoff berth down the stretch, assuming Mateer is healthy and active again for that South Carolina game and remains healthy and active throughout the rest of the campaign? No, I think even if that does happen, even if Michael Hawkins can't get Oklahoma over the hump against Texas, that's why I said, again, I think the outlook is perfectly fine. The outlook for Oklahoma at that point still has them very much in the college football playoff conversation at midseason.
Parker, we'll get you out of here on this thought. I know Bedlam isn't a thing anymore, but I can't let you go without getting your thoughts on Mike Gundy and kind of the force of nature he had become at Oklahoma State.
It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate that he wasn't at least permitted to finish the season with Oklahoma State. I think we all kind of understood the writing was on the wall with that Tulsa loss, if not earlier, with that Oregon loss, the 69-3 thrashing that they endured up in Eugene. I mean, the time had come. No doubt, Mike Gundy could not return as Oklahoma State's head coach in 2026. But, man, his name has become synonymous with that football program. I mean, people of my generation, Ryan's generation, I mean, we've hardly known an Oklahoma State without Mike Gundy. Not to mention, he is just one of the most endearing characters in all of college football. And maybe not endearing to everyone, maybe the more accurate word is polarizing. But it reminds me of the bowler. What's the bowler's name, Hoover?
Pete
That
Weber?
bowler who said, yeah, Pete Weber, hate me or love me, you watched. That's kind of the Mike Gundy experience in a nutshell,
That's
right?
literally the only bowler I know.
hate me or love me, you watched. We all paid attention to Mike Gundy because he was just so unpredictable in the things that he said and did. And it was entertainment. It was content.
Yep.
Man, and not to mention what he did with some very mediocre rosters over the years at Oklahoma State. Highly impressive. I mean, that program was as successful as it has ever been, and more so under his leadership. And so, look, at a certain point, if the clock strikes midnight, the glass slipper no longer fits, whatever you want to call it. Like his roster just wasn't any good in 2025, and you weren't winning with that roster. And it's understandable that the administration felt like, okay, we need to go a new direction. With some of the comments Mike Gundy has made about just not really jiving with what the NIL era of college football has become. We probably need some younger, more exuberant, more aggressive leadership to oversee roster construction in particular. And so the move makes sense, absolutely. I feel for Mike Gundy in that he wasn't allowed to finish out his 21st and final season at his alma mater and a program that he has done so much for and won so much at. Gonna miss him, man. I'm curious to see whether he keeps coaching or not. My thought would be this is the end of the line for him, and he just rides off into the sunset content with everything he did and everything he built at Oklahoma State. But who knows, man? 2025, Bill Belichick's coaching the University of North Carolina. So Mike Gundy may have one last surprise up his sleeve for us.
I agree with all that. I'd like to see him at Florida next year. Get your butt in the SEC and bring your brother with you, Mike Gundy.
Come on.
That's good. Now, Parker, thanks, man. You can read Parker's work at OUinsider.com. They do, let's face it, unparalleled work covering OU recruiting. Listen to him every day from noon to 3 on the Ref with Mike Steely, or catch the OU Insider podcast. You and Brandon Drum do great stuff on that as well. Or, hey, just follow him on Twitter at Parker Thune. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you, man, coming on, helping us celebrate number 300, because you were a big part of it all, my man.
Hey, likewise, man. I'm not where I am today without you and without, what is it now? Sooners on SI, formerly all Sooners, formerly all Sooners, or formerly SI. I don't even know. But this outlet is where it all got started for me. Always happy to help you guys out however I can.
Appreciate you, man. All right, guys, don't go anywhere because we've got none other than Josh Callaway coming up right now. All right, Sooners on SI podcast, episode 300, rolling right along. Thanks to Parker Thune for jumping on with us to help us commemorate our big anniversary show. Appropriately, one of the busiest weeks I can remember covering this beat. And the Sooners don't even play a game this week. It's been crazy. And it's just appropriate that we have all these dudes that have been on with us in the past helping us get here. You guys know Josh Callaway. He was the first person I hired to take us from a 2-man staff to a 3-man staff. And Josh really allowed us to really grow in all kinds of ways. Of course, now you can find Josh's work on the Sooners at SoonersIllustrated.com, part of CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. You can also follow him on Twitter at Josh Callaway. Josh, welcome back. We missed you. We love you. How you doing, Big Daddy?
Doing well, guys. It's obviously I loved the two-ish years that the three of us worked together. So awesome. I got to jump back on. 300 episodes is obviously awesome. And yeah, like you said, this was supposed to be kind of a slower week, and it hasn't been. That's how it always goes on this beat, it seems like. But yeah, man, glad to be back on with you guys. It's really cool. And it's been a fun season so far.
I say Big Daddy. You guys know I say Big Daddy just because Josh is out there populating the world, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, life has changed quite a bit since last time I was on with you guys. She turned 6 months old this week, if you can believe that already. It's crazy. It's flying by already. So, but yeah, it's been a bit hectic around here, but we're managing.
It's I remember talking to you about that in the Lloyd Noble Center parking lot. Love right. Parker, but I never got to work alongside Hoove and Parker. This is where it gets a little sentimental for me, because it's like Obviously, Hoove and I killed each other and ourselves and everything. Not like fighting, but just like everything that we were doing. We're like, we need a third man, and we were like, Josh, could we hit up Josh, please and thank you.
No doubt. And hey, that was obviously that was life changing for me. I said, whenever we left, whenever I, left a few years ago, that it did. I wasn't just like saying it. It changed my life completely. Who giving me that call and bringing me over to you guys with SI. And we had an awesome ride. The 2 seasons that we had that 2021 season will always be the most circus season of all time. And we had it together and we navigated that. We navigated 2022 and the insane Cheez-It Bowl and all that. The 2 years we had were very, very memorable. So
very eventful.
It set the stage for everything I'm doing now. I wouldn't be where I am now without who giving me that shot, And so I always am very appreciative for that.
I'm glad to hear you say that, man. It means a lot. I first noticed Josh. I'll just tell you guys this. I first noticed Josh Callaway and the real quality of his work way back when he started on the beat. I guess it was with Sooners Wire. Was it 2021, 2020, Josh?
2020 season, I guess, technically, yeah.
Yeah. We were on Zoom every week, several times a week with numerous athletes and Joe Castiglione. It was crazy. Josh, incredibly talented. He asked good questions. He has a good on-camera delivery. He's a good writer. He always came across with a great professional attitude. I immediately respected his work. And after Ryan replaced Parker, I think for the Cotton Bowl, right? Against Florida, Ryan, or was it Big 12 championship game?
No, well, I
was 2 weeks apart in the same stadium, so forgive me for being confused, right?
Right.
Well, I remotely covered the Big 12 championship game, helping with some like takeaways. Then the first so it was both, but the first in-person one was the Dan Mullen I Quit game.
Yeah, so we were in a position at that point where we needed to grow. And I reached out to Josh. I let him know, hey, man, I respect you. I enjoy your work. I think you could be a tremendous asset to our team. I believe it was at the Women's College World Series in summer of 2021, June 2021, Josh, in the press box in Oklahoma City, that fantastic OU freshman class, right, that won the first of their 4 straight national championships. That's when we put pen to paper, and I added you on as our multimedia coordinator. You took over the podcast, which got way better when Josh was doing it, and all the videos, and you absolutely crushed it, man.
Yeah, that was such a, because what I was doing before, obviously I was covering softball, I was covering baseball, I was kind of doing everything. I was kind of one man banding it at my previous job at Sooners Wire, like you said. And the opportunity to come work with you guys, first off, Hoove's a legend. So that was awesome anyway. I always liked Hoove. And obviously Ryan and I had to kind of become friends a little bit through some franchise connections and other things. And so that was a no brainer. But then also it was a position that far better, I thought, fit my skill set. Let me do some video stuff and the podcast, and it was a no-brainer for me. And it, like I said, it opened up everything I'm doing now. So great run, the 2 years that we had, and yeah, that getting that opportunity, and like you said, we talked about it in the press box there in Oklahoma City. It was like the excitement. I can remember kind of the feeling of it, of like, man, because it was. The Sooners Wire gig was a full-time job, but not really. I really wasn't making very much. That was really the first time I jumped into like a full-blown, like I actually am going to have a career in this, because you never really know until you make it, right? Until you get a job. And so that was what Who did for me, So it there's a lot of, like, in anybody's career, I think a lot of spots that someone helps you out, or something that you don't know if you get where you are without someone kind of clutching up for you. And for me, who's stepping up and having a belief in me to create a position for me, obviously wasn't something that you necessarily were doing before. You had the YouTube channel already and all that, but you didn't have someone pretty much go shoot video of the games and go, that was a new position. So to put that faith in me and give me that opportunity was absolutely huge. I don't know what I'll be doing now if not for that. So I was very appreciative for that, for sure.
Now I'll take it one step further. The following summer, just a year after that, you and I really got to know each other well when we drove up to Omaha and spent 17 days in my nephew's basement. My nephew, by the way, huge OU fan, played trumpet in the Pride. He's in the Air Force up at Offutt Air Force Base. He kindly let us hang out at his place while Skip Johnson and those boys went all the way to the damn national championship game.
Yeah, no, we were in Omaha the length of it. It was just us two and Eddie Radosevich at Sooner Scoop. I think we were the only three that were there wire to wire, from literally the media day before the first game to obviously they went all the way to the finals, 2+ weeks. And Yeah, that's an all-time memory. That was awesome. I mean, that was absolutely awesome. It was a lot. I was away from my wife for a very long time and my dogs. Obviously, daughter wasn't born yet, but it was a long journey. But it was also, I mean, it's a memory that I'll have forever. And every year they go, it looks like they might get back there. And I think of that run in 2022. We just lived in Nebraska. I mean, for a month basically. It was nuts.
We got to know the
Plenty of
layout of the
rough.
city, and you know,
We
it
probably
was
hit
crazy.
scooters double-digit times.
Every morning at Scooters.
We were frequenting scooters quite a
2
bit.
coffees and 2 waffle sandwiches, please.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
They knew. They do. Who've mentioned though the grind continues. It's an incredibly busy week, and Josh,
Yeah.
famously, one of the best moments we've had, one that I look back and absolutely adore. Not the disease sandwich. We'll get to the disease. We're closing with the disease sandwich. It is. We were doing our world famous prediction show where we do some bold predictions, and the great Josh Callaway once predicted the 2022 season for Oklahoma to go 12-0 in the regular season. Did not happen. They were well on their way to going 12-0 in this regular season, Josh, until our Tuesday just got blown to smithereens with John Mateer and injuries and everything. Never a dull moment on the OU beat, I guess.
Yep.
No, definitely not. That 2022 season, I mean, obviously we had the Nebraska game, which is still right up there for my favorite road games that I've gotten to cover when we went up to Lincoln that season. When we left that stadium that night, I think we were like, oh, I might be right. Like the way they blew up Nebraska that day in Lincoln. But yeah, like you said, this week, you know, this year's team off to a great start. Hopefully this doesn't just, the material injury news doesn't just derail, but this is how it always seems to go. It's like right when you think things are kind of slow or like you kind of have a beat on what's going on, something smacks you in the face. Who said that all the time? I remember like there's no way any other beat or any other team is as insane as this one is. And of course we had 2021, which was literally an insane thing happening every week. That's the other thing I always remember about our time was this was our group, you know, in the whole Lincoln Riley leaves and Ryan and I are at the airport and the coaching search. Like we were doing a lot of communicating and a lot of talking together for that. It felt like a month, but I think it was only like literally a week, the coaching search, but it felt like way longer.
Want to get your thoughts on John Mateer's start at OU, 4-0, you know, leading the nation in various categories and leading the SEC and leading the Heisman race. Then his injury on a routine pass play out of the pocket. He's not running. He bangs his thumb, breaks his thumb. How the hell does this keep happening to Oklahoma? And then the second question is, what do you think Michael Hawkins does with this opportunity?
Yeah, you know, I mean, John's start, it was so fun because it really was reminiscent and it kind of brought back some of the feelings of when Baker Mayfield was here or Kyler Murray or even Jalen Hurts, like this star quarterback that's at the forefront of the Heisman race and all that. Because, you know, we kind of had that with Caleb Williams for like a little bit. You know, we tried to put that on Spencer Rattler back in the day and he didn't quite live up to it, obviously. And you know, Dylan Gabriel was really good, but never like that sort of a star here. And, you know, we thought Jackson Arnold maybe would be that, and he wasn't. And it's like we had that with John Mateer the first month of the year. He's been the best quarterback in the country, you know, for the first month of the season. And with what the defense is doing, you felt like even with the offensive line injuries, even with the lack of a run game, you kind of just felt like, man, as long as they have John Mateer over there with this defense, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of games. And so it really unfortunate. It sucks. You know, I'm sure you guys are in the same boat as far as getting to know John. He seems like a great guy and like he's been perfect fit for this program. He's been great to deal with in the media and everything. And so hopefully he can get back sooner rather than later. I do think for Michael Hawkins, not that I'm, you know, it's not like I've ever been the biggest pushing for Michael Hawkins to be some big star here, but I do think like with Ben Arbuckle, an actual offensive line and actual weapons, unlike what he had last year, with this defense, you know, like they can probably weather the storm, you know, with Michael Hawkins. I think that's realistic. Like they're not expecting him to go out there and score 30, 40 points every weekend to win, you know? So it's going to be a lot tougher than obviously it would have been if Mateer could have remained healthy throughout this, but it happened at the best time. I mean, they're off this week, Kent State next week, and then you have Texas. So at least you have that working for you. And again, with this defense, it's like, if you can just take care of the ball, put together some drive, try to grind out some lower scoring games, I think they can win that way. So I don't think the season is in the toilet. You know, they got, you know, it's going to be a lot tougher, but I think that they can still weather the storm and win games with Michael Hawkins, at least in the interim, until John Mateer can get back. So I don't think the season's over by any means. Oklahoma's still got a shot to win some games and still make something happen this year.
Josh, all of us were there post game for Auburn. And one of the big storylines that was kind of being asked out a bunch of guys, by me included, was you just saw John Mateer shake off a slow start and go march down the field when you needed it, down 17-16 and score. That belief changes football teams, not just the defense that's supremely confident anyway, but that kind of knowing you've got that ace up your sleeve of a quarterback that can go win you any game. What do you think that does to the group just for this, however long, whether if it's back in South Carolina, back in Ole Miss, if he's Wolverine and somehow makes the greatest recovery ever? What does that do for this defense? Do we get back to conversations last year where they're pressing because they feel like they have to do too much, or is that maybe different situation than what Hawkins is stepping into this go round?
Yeah, that's kind of the unknown, and it would help a lot if Michael Hawkins and this offense could go take advantage of the fact that they're playing a bottom tier team in the FBS next week in Kent State and go get some confidence and gets that kind of good vibes going. You saw on social media yesterday, guys like Grayson Halton and other ones kind of putting out there, we believe in Michael Hawkins. Even Jim Nagy did it. This team's behind him. We can win with Michael Hawkins. So I think, defensively, that's kind of the question. And can the offense do enough to at least give them a chance? Because that was what hurt them so much last year. You think of the Texas game last year, which Michael Hawkins started, even though he wasn't turning it over or anything, they weren't moving the ball. The defense was living on the field and they just kind of ran out of gas. So you have to find a way to avoid that, because that's something that this Oklahoma offense has done really well the first 4 games, is get the defense off their feet. The number of snaps that this group has actually played is quite low through 4 games. And I think that's been a huge part of why they've been so good with how deep they are, though they can bring waves of guys in. Fatigue has just not been a factor at all. Whereas last year that definitely hurt them a few times where the defense just ran out of gas from being on the field all the time. So, I think that it's fair to still be optimistic. It's up to the defense, though. Like you said, that's kind of the question. Are they going to be pressing, thinking we have to be perfect? It would probably help to get some turnovers now as well. They have 0 through the first 4 games. Wouldn't hurt to maybe get some of those, give Michael Hawkins some short fields in some of these games coming up. That would also probably be a big plus.
Yeah, turnovers, takeaways, got to get them now. It's not optional. Hawkins has played a grand total of 19 snaps this year. We haven't seen him. Other than that, we haven't seen sophomore Michael Hawkins this year, right? So what do you think? Maybe it's too soon. Maybe we need to watch him against Kent State next week. But what do you think, just off the cuff, ceiling for this team? What's the floor?
Yeah, I think that, like I kind of was saying before, unlike last year for Michael Hawkins, he has an actual offensive coordinator this time, to back eventually. And using Hawkins' legs, he'll have actual weapons, he'll have an actual line. I think this offense could still be decent, and I definitely left the Temple game in Philly not overly impressed with what we saw from him in his quarter plus. But watching the game back, they were really close to some big plays through the air with Michael Hawkins. And he even had one where it was it would have been a 60 or 70 yard touchdown to Elijah Thomas, but the defender just tackled Elijah Thomas. It was a perfect ball. Elijah Thomas had his man beat. And again, it was just a blatant PI to save a touchdown. I was okay, there was a couple plays there that they almost popped, some big ones with Michael Hawkins in there. Again, utilizing his legs a little bit. We all know he's a great athlete. We saw what he did in Auburn last year, where he just broke a 40, 50 yard touchdown run, whatever it was at the beginning of that game. He has ability. He's not John Mateer, but he has ability, and he's definitely a great athlete. So I do think that there's a reasonable expectation that, let's say John misses the Texas game and the South Carolina game, which I think is probably the worst case scenario. At least that's what they're hoping for. I think both those games are still winnable, in that I don't think Oklahoma has no shot. Now, I wouldn't favor them in either game with Michael Hawkins, but with what this defense is, I think that they can still win those games. And if John comes back and he's anything like what we saw before, all those goals are still on the table that we thought, after they beat Michigan or after they beat Auburn just last weekend. So I still think there's a lot of meat on the bone with the season. And again, I think that there's still, if you're an Oklahoma fan, it's a gut punch, it's a body blow, and it probably is a death shot to Mateer's Heisman chances and all that kind of stuff. But I think that Oklahoma still trying to get to the playoff or whatever is still realistic for now. Still realistic for now.
It helps too that I think we all thought the defense was going to be good. I don't know if anyone thought it was going to be like this good.
Yeah, right.
And what they've been able to do. I mean, Josh, candidly, if you had told us, hey, that first SEC game against Auburn, R. Mason Thomas is going to be out for the first half, and they're still going to put up what 6 first half sacks. If you had told us that in early August, I think we would have been like, all right, the crimson glasses are on. Let's set those down for a minute and be like, it's good. They can stop the run, but what can they do to get after quarterbacks?
I know. I've been on our show the last few weeks, especially, just been over the moon with this defense. It's so much fun to watch. And maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, but it feels like I'm having more fun watching this defense just terrorize teams than even like the prolific offenses in 17 and 18. Like it's just that end of the game sequence on Saturday where Auburn just couldn't go anywhere, and obviously ends in the safety, was just electric. And I think what a good defense does for the crowd. It's been a blast. It's been A+ from the defense so far. It's been so fun to watch, and it's an obvious statement, but how far they've come under Brent Venables. Like, there's a lot that you can poke holes in what Brent Venables has done, and he's had 2 losing seasons. Like, all that is fair, but my God, like how far they've come defensively from what we were watching in 17, 18, 19, even 21. It's unbelievable. It's been a blast to watch. That defensive line's incredible.
Yeah, no disrespect intended to Ted Roof, but Brent probably should have been in 2022. Probably shouldn't have brought Ted Roof. I mean, there's the guy knows how to coach defense. Nobody, maybe in the country, coaches defense better than Brent Venables, and that's what we're finding out now. People just, their weekends are wrecked because they have to play Oklahoma's defense.
The stat that I heard on Saturday night, this was back when there was still 10 sacks, so they took one away. But the merit of it still stands in that the 10 sacks were the most against a ranked team since 2017, which was Auburn, against Clemson, which was Brent Venables' defense. It's just it's insane. It's insane. The man knows defense, like you said. You can poke holes in and other things if you want. He can coach defense. There's no argument against that.
I don't know if you've seen, Josh, the SEC schedule is out for the next 4 years. Oh my God, right. This schedule looks legit, doesn't it? I mean, when you think about, here's 26 home games: Ole Miss, Kentucky, South Carolina, Texas A&M. Road games at Missouri, you've got Texas on the road as well. But at Florida, at Georgia, at Mississippi State, that's 26. And then 27 they come back with, of course, Texas. They got road games at Ole Miss, at Auburn, at LSU, and at Vanderbilt. Who doesn't want to play at Vanderbilt in Nashville, right? Home games, Missouri, again, Alabama, Arkansas, and Tennessee coming to Norman. Dude, this is why right here Oklahoma joined the SEC.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You read my mind in that. I hadn't really realized how kind of burnt I was on the Big 12 schedule, really, until we're doing this. And it's like, golly, like big games every weekend. And just look at the amount of attention that's been on Oklahoma these last 2 years, even with how bad they were last year. How much attention's been on Oklahoma the last 2 years, even compared to the Heisman Trophy winning teams, and the playoff teams. And that I mentioned before, 17, 18, 19, like the amount of times that College Game Day has already been known in the last 2 years. And the national shows are making their way. National media has made their way to Norman. It's because there's big games played by this team and in Norman finally, basically every weekend all season long. It's a blast. It's way tougher, obviously, but it's worth it. It's worth it. The fans love it. And just getting up for these big games. You mentioned Florida, Georgia next year. They also obviously go to Michigan, the non-conference. So, like, if you're an OU fan, what incredibly awesome trips. And for us, like in the media, to get to go, like, this is all due respect to Lawrence, Kansas. Like, this is a different story, man. It's awesome. And I love it. I'm fired up for those trips next year. Maybe not Starkville, but the other ones I'm pumped up for. And it's going to be awesome. I've loved the SEC trips so far. I'm excited for the ones this year. And it's a lot of fun kind of navigating this conference and just, again, having huge games basically every weekend all season long.
To bring it all back around, when this 3 was together with Hoover leaving from Tulsa to go all across the country, and Josh and I both in the Norman, OKC area. Josh and I were like the road crew, usually linking up with Hoover. It's pretty on brand that my first reaction from the schedule release was like, this is all great. I don't want to go to Starkville, but this is all great. And
yeah, read my mind. That was really the one SEC place that was like, I'm good. And but we're headed there next year. I've been told to bring earplugs because the cowbells are like just a nightmare, basically. So
It's all right. It's drivable. I've been there. It's drivable. We'll see you guys. See you guys in the car.
One of the few in this conference.
Josh, as always, my friend, I appreciate you. I really can't adequately express how glad I am that you were able to jump on with us today and really to help us celebrate this momentous episode 300, because as I said before, you were a huge part of getting us here.
I appreciate it. Definitely glad I was able to hop on. 300 episodes is, I mean, it's awesome. And you completely just built this thing, obviously from the ground up, essentially, whenever you took it over, obviously several years ago now, starting with Parker and then Ryan, myself, and all the guys you have now. It's been awesome to watch it just grow and get bigger and bigger. And obviously I always pull for you guys, even if I'm not on part of the squad anymore. So, but great to hop on. And obviously I'll be seeing you guys here down the road before too long.
Absolutely. We'll catch up. Thanks, Josh. You guys hang in there. We got more of the big 300th show coming right up. It's Randall Sweet coming up now. All right, the Sooners on SI podcast, episode 300. We are grateful to Parker and Josh for jumping on with us to help us celebrate our big milestone. But you all remember this guy. It wasn't that long ago that Randall Sweet was a big part of the Sooners on SI staff. After Josh left, Sooners on SI, we couldn't afford to take a step backward, right? So I went out and I combed the world for a talented young person who loves hard work, loves journalism, loves sports writing, loves telling stories, and in Randall's case, loves covering recruiting. Randall, welcome back, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. It is phenomenal to be back. It's great to be back on the podcast with you guys. I'm really excited.
Randall left us last September. He said yesterday was his 1-year anniversary. He kind of headed back home, back to the Texas Panhandle. He's from Lubbock, but Amarillo is where he works now. Amarillo Globe. 1 year yesterday, Randall. Congratulations, man. Amarillo.com is where you're going to find his stuff covering Texas high school preps, mostly Panhandle sports. Is that right?
Yeah, mostly sports and high school sports in the Texas Panhandle.
Yep. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, at Randall Sweet 5.
And Randall's still been a big part of what we've done here. Obviously, Ben Arbuckle comes from Randall's current stomping grounds. Aaliyah Chavez on the women's basketball front. Randall was some of the background stuff that doesn't always make it out there. A lot of phone calls, a lot of texts between Randall and I. I'm just like, hey, let's work two ends of this thing together, even if he's working for somewhere else, because it helped everybody. And that's the kind of stuff that I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot of places where it seems like it's a big family even after you're gone and moved on to other stuff. And today's kind of like a celebration of that in a way too, as well.
Absolutely. And I'm super grateful. I learned a ton while I was at Sooners on SI from you guys. And I know, the stuff that I'm doing now, I know that I would not have been prepared for this stop now without, the lessons that I learned from you guys, and just learning how to, work hard as a journalist, be a professional. So always eternally grateful to you guys. Like I said, super excited to be back talking with y'all again.
Parker, Josh, and Randall, this is me today. You got to make my heart full to hear you, all three of you say that. It really does. I'm very proud that you were on my staff. I'm very proud to have worked with you. Randall, let's dive in, man. I know you still follow OU sports closely, so let's talk about John Mateer, the season that he's had so far. He comes from, I'm not going to say nowhere, okay? He comes from Little Elm, Texas, which is kind of almost nowhere. It's on the north edge of the DFW. But he goes to Washington State. Kind of like, can you think of any other quarterbacks who came out of Texas with not many scholarship offers and ended up flirting with what's going on at Washington State? Maybe one guy, Baker Mayfield. That's right. Yeah, he ended up at Texas Tech, of course, before transferring to OU. But Mateer transfers in. 1 month into the season, he is the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. How does that happen? And then on a routine play out of the pocket, he's throwing the football, bang, breaks his thumb. Like, this beat never stops with the news.
It's crazy, kind of given what Oklahoma dealt with injury-wise last year. While I was on the beat, I saw that. And then even past that, I think it was kind of a national storyline, the injuries OU dealt with. This year, it seems like a little bit better injury luck. I think it's still obviously the offensive line. But then, your star, the star of the football team goes out and breaks his thumb. Not only one of the most talented players, but kind of like the leader of the team, the guy who, the guy you're going to put on the poster boards, right? So that obviously hurts. I think that, my first thought was, well, it's interesting. The guy that, is going to be starting for him has actually played more OU Texas games than Mateer or Arch Manning, if that is obviously what has to happen. Because I think that everyone who follows OU football, that's kind of where their head goes first, right? Kent State, you could probably go out there with, the second or third team and be just fine, still eke out a win. But, a week later is when it is what everyone's mind is focused on, especially when you see that, reevaluated in a few weeks or, will miss a few weeks. It's really interesting. I think that, Ben Arbuckle, given what we've seen from his offense, I think it does fit well with what a guy like Michael Hawkins does if you do have to roll with him against OU Texas. But of course, like you said, the Heisman frontrunner, that's just an impossible player to replace on your football team. Again, not only the talent on the football field, but the leadership in the locker room, just kind of you saw it against Auburn, the moxie of, hey, the team's down, broken thumb, I don't care. I'm going to go down, lead the game-winning drive, make a few big throws, run the game-winning score in. And again, a guy like that's hard to replace, no matter how talented the backup quarterback is, which I do think Michael Hawkins is a good backup.
Just an insane first month of the season. And when I think about it, an insane, let's stretch this thing all the way to Texas for Ben Arbuckle, a guy that I know a lot of people in the Panhandle in West Texas are still keeping tabs on.
Mm-hmm.
You look at it, week 1, he had it's an interesting challenge of new offense. How much do you show? How much work do you give Mateer with his new receivers? Then knowing that you were hiding everything for Michigan, week 2, he's matching wits with Wink Martindale, one of the most experienced defensive minds in football. Week 3, how do you keep this group motivated and take them on the road after a big win? Week 4, Ben Arbuckle is now game planning with an offensive line that has 2 guys that can't move. You're like, oh my gosh, you get to the bye week, you can finally breathe. Now he's got to get Michael Hawkins Jr. ready to go and probably play Texas. I mean, poor Ben Arbuckle.
Yeah, it's crazy too because Mateer's looked good, but it's almost like, have you really even seen the full extent of what Mateer could be with, of course, he has to gel with this offense that takes, time. And then, like you said, of course, they're not showing everything in week 1, probably not showing everything against Temple either. Weeks 2 and 4, you're playing really tough defenses. And again, still gelling. You've got guys dealing with injuries. So, yeah, I mean, just crazy. It's almost like, after this surgery, we could see, maybe even more of what Mateer, could become. I don't know. But just the running and throwing so far has been really impressive. I think that, we kind of knew he would be a good runner just given, watching what he did at Washington State. But, the way obviously he's missed a few throws, but I think everyone's seen he's dropped a few really impressive ones in the bucket. So I've been impressed with what I've seen from him. I think him and Arbuckle have done a great job together. And like you said, people in the Panhandle still keeping a lot of tabs on Arbuckle. I think they've really enjoyed seeing his success, and not only, his success, but he's getting mentioned a lot on TV. He's a big highlight. It seems like every time I watch an OU game, they're like, hey, did you know this guy was a high school coach 5 years ago? And so that's been pretty cool to kind of see that as well.
Uber Eats. He drove for Uber.
Yeah.
We read on Sooners SI back last year that he drove for Uber Eats. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
True. When you left last year, and I think Jackson Arnold was still the starting quarterback, but you talked to Michael Hawkins a couple of times in spring, and he was there in August, and I just want to get your thoughts on how you think Michael Hawkins year 2 with a new coordinator, all new wide receivers, a better offensive line, legitimate tight ends, how that guy is going to be maybe better served moving forward for Oklahoma, especially coming up if Mateer can't play against Texas. It's going to be Michael Hawkins again.
Well, I mean, I think, first you have to look at last year, Oklahoma didn't have a quarterbacks coach. That's probably a point that's been labored and bemoaned a ton. But I mean, I think when you have a freshman quarterback and no quarterbacks coach, that's probably a big deal, right? That's a guy that needs to learn. And he was even able to go out there and do some nice things, without that. Obviously, there was rough moments for Michael Hawkins. There's going to be that for any freshman, especially dealing with the situations that he dealt with at, like you said, the receiver position on the offensive line. But I think I mentioned it a second ago. I think Ben Arbuckle's scheme fits really well for what Michael Hawkins does, right? I mean, John Mateer's run the ball a lot. Michael Hawkins is a good runner as well. Maybe a different style of runner. He might be a little quicker than Mateer, but again, still, I think that Ben Arbuckle's scheme will fit well with what he does. And like you said, I think that having a vastly improved offensive line, receivers that are healthy, that you can trust out there to catch the ball, I think that that's just gonna really not only elevate his confidence, but the level of play. The running game is something that OU of course needs to figure out, but I think that Michael Hawkins can at least be confident knowing that he's going to be playing behind an offensive line that's going to keep him upright a lot more than they did last year. The South Carolina game, again, the points been hit since last year, but he was hit battered from the first snap of that game. I think if the offensive line against the good teams like Texas, obviously Kent State, they should be able to hold up well. But if that offensive line can, keep him upright against a strong front like Texas, I think Michael Hawkins has the moxie, has the confidence in himself. And again, he's played in that game before to go out there and at least keep things competitive.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by like what kind of edge Michael Hawkins brings to
Yeah.
the situation, because like when we talk to him, he's very cool, very calm, very collected, very dry, like in the way that you love from a quarterback. He's not going to go out there and he's going to talk up his teammates, not going to get you in trouble, stuff like that. But that Auburn game, the only time that they're really having success a year ago, we saw him immediately like celebrate that big touchdown, stuff like that. You could be looking at a run where it's like the Hawkins redemption tour, right? The Texas game where things were not good a year ago. At South Carolina, if Mateer's not back for that, where things went catastrophic for him. I'm kind of curious, like, how he handles that emotion, Randall, of wanting to almost kind of get one back against almost a Baker Mayfield list. Does he have the list out, or is he like, yeah, I don't really care, I'm just going to play my game type thing?
Yeah, that I was gonna almost invoke like the like Kobe kind of mindset, right? Of like or like a Jordan style of mindset where, those guys they're not gonna talk a ton, but they put in the work behind the scenes. They hate to lose. And when they do lose or when they are taken the best of, they want to go back into the lab and they want to make sure that they're gonna work until that doesn't happen again. I don't know Michael Hawkins perfectly, but everything that I've seen about him, that's kind of the mindset I get from him. And the fact that his dad played in the NFL, that kind of, maybe that mindset rubs off on him there, that confidence. I think the way you phrased it is perfect, right? Like how does he react after kind of being slighted, after not looking great last year? Does he come out and kind of say like, I want to prove everyone wrong this year. This is my time to show the world that I'm still a really good quarterback. And next year, if John Mateer's gone, OU fans don't need to worry. I think that, again, from what we've seen from his dad and things like that, it wouldn't be surprising for him to come out and have that chip on his shoulder. And also, looking at the way his younger brother plays too.
One of the things that one of my favorite things about Randall was that he really truly enjoyed covering recruiting. Recruiting's a hard thing to cover, especially if you don't know much about it. You don't know where to start. It's just there's a lot of tentacles and there's a lot of things going on at once. Recruiting is very difficult to cover. Randall enjoyed it. Randall reveled in it, and I was always very appreciative of him for being able to step into that role and say, "Yeah, I'll go to this camp, I'll shoot this video, I'll go interview that player, go to this game, talk to these coaches and whatnot." He loved doing that stuff. So that's one thing we miss from Randall's coverage big time. Randall, tell us again. I made you tell this story once, but it was a long time ago. Why do you like recruiting so much? You're one of the rare ones.
Well, I played football in high school. A lot of people did. I'm not rare in that case, but I don't know what it was. My favorite part about high school, about playing high school football, was the team aspect, of course. But aside from that, was when we got to sit down in the film room on Mondays and we would look at the other team's best player, and the coach would say, this is the other team's best player. This is what they do well. This is what we need to take away. This is what we need to stop. And I don't know, that always was fascinating to me, kind of seeing that, analyzing the other team's best player, analyzing what we need to do to stop them, what they're good at. A big part of analyzing what you need to do to stop them is what they're good at, right? How do you take that away? And I think that just kind of carried over into, watching film on, recruiting and seeing like, how does this guy fit with an OU or a different, school around the country? Does this player play a similar role to, with Oklahoma, I'll use an example. Brent Venables linebackers, right? What can Brent Venables linebackers do? They're fast. They run sideline to sideline. They fly around the field and make plays. So if you see a guy on a high school film who's doing that, and it makes sense that, OU would be after a guy like that. The things like that, those kind of puzzle pieces to me have always been really fascinating. And that's kind of how I view recruiting.
Get you out of here on this, Randall. The OU's recruiting right now, they've got 19 guys in the 2026 class. I don't know how tied in you are with what OU's doing recruiting-wise, but they've got 2 in 2027. Are either of those numbers, just in terms of where we're at on the calendar and what kind of players are thinking about as they're evaluating college and NIL and what can the college do for me and revenue sharing now as part of the equation, is 2 in 2027 and 19 in 2026, are those okay, those acceptable? Are they behind? Are they in a good spot? What do you think?
I would say you're in a good spot in both. I think the old recruiting class moniker was, almost around 25 every class, right? With the transfer portal now, it's not you might not take 25 every year. Some years you might take 25, some years you might not. If I think 19 is a fine, it's not too few to where you need to worry about. I mean, we've seen OU take 16 in classes before and be just fine. So I think 19 is a good number, especially if you like the guys you've got, and especially if you've got a chance to maybe win one or two more recruitments, before signing day. I think the two in 2027 is you might want that number a little higher, but I look back to this time whenever I was covering OU recruiting, before Michael Hawkins committed, I think OU at this point had zero recruits in his class, and he was one of the first. So that they were way behind that year. Again, at this point they had zero recruits in that class. I don't think it would have been until March that they got their first recruit in that upcoming class. And so, just to think about that, where OU's already got two. I mean, we already know that they're in good positions with other 2027 recruits. Even guys like Zane Rowe, who have been committed, backed off, and have stayed around the program, still showed interest. And again, if you keep winning this year with Ben Arbuckle, kind of erase the 6-7 stench from last year, you put that in the past, those 2027 recruits are going to flock back. Again, it's also tough, though, because right now, like you said, you're dealing with a lot of regional powers in NIL, like a Texas Tech, who anybody that you want from DFW or even the state of Oklahoma, Texas Tech can just go and, put as much money towards it as they want. I think I saw it on Twitter. I'm not going to say that this was my original take, but I agree with it. Someone said that Texas Tech is one of the schools that gets it in NIL. They get to how to align the donor base with the coaching staff, with the administration, and it's worked perfectly for Texas Tech. I mean, they've nailed recruiting because of that. I think OU is, I mean, I'm not, obviously I'm not as tapped in as I used to be, but I think OU is on the right track in that sense as well. And I think that 19 recruits in this current class and two in the next class show that. And I think that number, the two in the next class, I think you're going to see that rise pretty quick. I think, really remember with this 26 class, it was a few hot months and they had, 10 or 13 right in 1 or 2 months. I think the 27 class, that summertime period where it gets really popular in recruiting, that's when you're going to pick up a bunch of those recruits anyway. So two now is nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, Ryan, he's right about Texas Tech spending the money for the players they want, and they started it with none other than Nyjah Kennedy in softball and went all the way to the national championship game. I mean, that's how college athletics is done these days.
They understand the alignment. They also understand how to tamper on current rosters. And I'm not going to get Randall in trouble with his current gig, but they've got a fixer for softball. They've got fixers, allegedly, I guess. They definitely have a fixer for softball for other stuff, and that. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's what Kelly Gregg always says. And a lot of what they're doing in football recruiting, though, is in the realm of, yes, this is what you should be doing, right? So you got to get that attention somehow. But I think they got everyone's attention with Nyjah and kind of the first couple through. And from now on, I think it's going to be even easier for Texas Tech to walk through that door. They're not going to need the alleged handlers and all that stuff that call up like a Cassie Pickering or someone like that. They don't need that anymore. People just know.
And it helps, I think, to have a public face of their NIL too. The guy, one of their big donors, is very public in his support and in his donations. So I think that helps too, because it's not just some mysterious bagman off in the distance. It's this guy saying, I care about the student athletes here. I care about Texas Tech. I want this program to win. I think that's helped the players kind of buy in and realize that too.
Who's that going to be at Oklahoma? Who's going to step up and be that billionaire with the endlessly deep pockets? I don't know. We'll see. Randall, man, I can tell you this. We are so glad you decided to join the staff back in, May of 2023, I think. And we are equally glad that you're jumping on the podcast for episode 300 because you're one of the main people. You're one of the main reasons that we're here. You're one of the main people who helped put us here at 300 episodes. So, man, thank you again. Much love. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you thank you enough for having me back on and for all you guys have done for me just throughout my career. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
I've still got do I need to frame the DM that Randall and I had very, very early on? Send it to John and send it to Randall of hit up Hoop. Apply.
Yeah. That was a good one.
I'll remember that forever.
That was a good one. That was a gold mine, Ryan. Good one, man. We've had a few of those over the years. We're going to keep episode 300 rolling when we jump back into the usual flow with Carson Field and Ryan Aber. That's coming up right now.
The time hop has come all the way forward. We are current. We are present day here on September 24th. Hoove and I, obviously joined by the great Carson Field and Ryan Aber. Let's start here. Carson, did you have any plans for your bye week, or did you have past tense any plans for your bye week other than working? Because they're out the window, my friend.
Yeah, didn't have a whole lot planned, thankfully. Just some naps here and there, maybe some rounds of golf. Not going to get much of those. Hopefully, still get at least 9 holes in before week's end. Not looking too likely right now, but a lot of caffeine, a lot of writing, a lot of being on social media. So, busy man, busy man.
Yeah, I think our screen time is going to be broken this week. This is supposed to be the recalibration, but instead it's just we're waiting that Mike Gundy, John Mateer, these things come in threes, Aber. Who's next?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. What's going to happen if something big happens with the Thunder, maybe? Keep our fingers crossed that it would be positive, but that's the other main domino that hasn't fallen in some way this week, right? So we'll keep a thought out for those Thunder beat folks that nothing breaks their late off season.
Aber. It's college football season, man. Tulsa doesn't go on page 3 anymore, don't you know? It's going to happen at Tulsa. Something's going to happen at Tulsa.
As you said last night in the group text, though, who wonder what page Tulsa's on today.
Yeah, with Mike Gundy, John Mateer, and Tulsa's a little under, not on page 3. I'll put it that way.
I think what it's going to end up, the GIF, whatever, from no, I guess it's not a GIF. The John Travolta from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
I think that Trey Lamb's going to look around and go, okay, if being in the news means this at Oklahoma State and this at Oklahoma, I think he's like, yeah, we're good. Check in with us on Saturday. We'll be all right. We'll be okay. So if you made it this far, obviously John Mateer will never play football ever. I'm kidding. John Mateer has the thumb injury. He has gone under the knife, which the great Matt Ravis, it was brought to his attention that this is the same surgeon who worked on J-Dubs. So Sam Presti does speak at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I guess we'll get an update on J-Dubs road back. Hopefully that's good news, obviously. But let's start here. Carson, today, SEC teleconference, you were on that call with Brent Venables. A lot compressed into what? It's basically usually like 10 minutes, but I'm just going to give you the floor. What everything Brent Venables had to say about everything basically on the teleconference, because those stories are up at OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com, but you got the vibe of everything as you were on that call actively participating, obviously.
Yeah, I know that we talked about at the media day press conference before the season that Brent Venables was a little bit tense. He was a lot of bit tense today on that press conference. Obviously, a lot going on. You can't fault him too much for that. But a lot of it was talking about Mateer. He didn't want to talk too much about the timetable, the timeline of what happened against Auburn. More wanted to focus on Michael Hawkins. Brent Venables did say he has great confidence in him. Over the last 8.5 months since the end of last season, Hawkins has really developed, become a better passer. Obviously, already had a lot of those intangibles, being a dual threat. We've seen his speed definitely, even this season against Temple when he came in, we saw his speed. So he talked and praised Michael Hawkins quite a bit. He also provided some updates on Giovanni Gibson and Eli Bowen, both of whom we haven't seen this year. He makes it seem like both of them are very close to their returns, have been practicing catching balls, running in practice, getting some reps in. So that's good news on the Sooners front. I mean, you look at arguably the best cornerback on this team coming back into the lineup. Gibson, we haven't seen him, so it's hard to call him arguably the best receiver, but everything we heard from spring ball is he's really dang good at football. Just adds a lot of size, speed, really good player to the offense, which I think OU will take any addition they get on offense with Mateer being out. He also talked about the adjustments that Arbuckle will have to make. Obviously, he's had a really strong start at OU, finding ways to win, quick drives, methodical drives. Things change with a different quarterback. Even if Hawkins is better than what he was last year, it's going to look a lot different. He's a different kind of quarterback than John Mateer is. But Venables, he just praised Arbuckle's leadership, his knowledge of the game, being a youthful mind, being so in sync with his players. So he just kind of went up. He went into that a little bit, and he got asked a weird question about availability reports. Players that are limited in practice, do they show up on the availability reports? BV more or less dodged that one. But some really interesting stuff about Hawkins, Arbuckle, Bowen, and Gibson. So it was good stuff today.
Let me toss it to you this way. Now that the modus operandi for Oklahoma football is Michael Hawkins Jr. going to start against Kent State, unless John Mateer is Wolverine, he's going to start against Texas. Michael Hawkins Jr. as well. And I don't want to rule that out, but as we've talked about, I don't have a ton of interest in comparing hey, Jared Goff had this injury and it took him 12 days, or hey, Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke had this last year, because everybody's different, every injury's different, every specific. It could no two ACL tears are the same. That's it, so same thing there. But when you look at Michael Hawkins Jr., what Ben Arbuckle's going to have to do, the offense has got to find a running game. The defense, just open season. What's the most interesting thing for you here immediately as we kind of come to grips with the news and that Michael Hawkins Jr. for at least a couple of games is going to be QB1 in Norman?
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got to get Michael Hawkins the full package, right? He's only played 19 snaps in one game this year. It was at Temple. You got to get him the full package. You got to get him out on the field, get him used to reading defenses and reacting to what's going on and how defenses are attacking them or not attacking them or whatever. And that's going to be against Kent State. And then a week later, they're going to be playing Texas. So where do you draw the line? This is too much. This is too much playbook for him to absorb in 1 week, even though it's just Kent State, versus we don't want to show too much to Texas because we don't want to open up our playbook and have them wonder, know exactly what we're going to do. These are our tendencies and these are our, our formations and these are what we do out of them. So if you're Ben Arbuckle, you kind of got to walk a little bit of a fine line. Too much showing, but you still got to get a lot out there for Hawkins to do against Kent State. So he's not cold or raw or whatever it is when he goes up against Texas. He's had obviously some experience, bad experience in the Cotton Bowl against Texas. So you want him comfortable, but also you don't want Texas to have the full view of every play that they're going to have available to them.
Yeah, I think it's, asking him to do a little bit of everything. And like you said, give him the full range of the offense to where he feels comfortable and confident in running that. But at the same time, I think, you hold back little elements of it that maybe isn't holding back things that he's doing, but certain plays, certain looks, things like that, where you can keep something in your pocket for Texas, but you still give him the full range of skills, his skill set to get into that comfortable, confident level. Because I think that's the biggest thing for him is just instilling that confidence in him, both internally and from around the rest of the team. To build some momentum here entering a Texas game that I think, before the Mateer news, all of a sudden looked, not that it wasn't winnable before, because you never know what's going to happen in OU Texas, but it was looking more and more winnable by the second with the struggles of Arch Manning, the way that OU has played on both sides of the ball and everything else. And now it's taken on a little bit different turn. So, it'll be really fascinating to see what this team looks like against Kent State, because you could go out there and you could probably run the football for, 450, 500 yards against Kent State if you really wanted to. But that's not going to help you against Texas when you've got a much better defense on the other side. So they're going to have to, do some different things. And I think this is going to test Ben Arbuckle in a way that he hasn't been tested so far.
Yeah, for Mike Hawkins Jr., this is the biggest, assuming he starts both the Kent State and the Texas game. This is about as big of a jump and a difference in defenses that you can see. You look at Kent State, they're arguably the worst team in the FBS. They gave up points and a lot of them. I think they gave up 63 this past week to Florida State. Starters obviously didn't play that full game for the Seminoles. And then going against Texas, we've seen a lot of question marks with Texas in their offense. That defense is still really dang good. That is still a very good unit, one of the best in college football. And for Hawkins' sake, you like starting out with someone that's a little bit easier and then working your way up to a better defense. I just I wish it was a slightly tougher test than Kent State. Like even flip-flopping Illinois State to this week, I think would have set Hawkins up better. Just getting someone a bit easier and then going against, oh crap, this is Texas's defense. Kent State admittedly doesn't provide too much of a challenge, or it shouldn't. I don't expect it to be much of a challenge for the offense. So that makes things difficult for Hawkins because 1 week later you're at a 50-50 split site at the Cotton Bowl playing against one of the best defenses. It's not going to be easy.
Good news is John Mateer and Michael Hawkins Jr. have the same number of SEC victories under their belt in their career, both coming against Auburn. And I don't know. I think this would be like a full-blown disaster if it weren't that Michael Hawkins Jr. last year got a road start at Auburn, got to experience the Cotton Bowl, who this time of year, every single year, we talk about it was going to be a moot point earlier that if it was Mateer v. Arch, because neither of those guys have started an OU Texas game, but even quarterbacks, and I'm not calling Michael Hawkins Jr. a bad quarterback. Don't misunderstand this, but even players in the history of this rivalry who, compared to the guys that have played bad quarterbacks who then have a second or third bite at the apple. Think about Case McCoy won an OU Texas game his third time trying, and obviously Oklahoma's working with something much better in Michael Hawkins Jr. than like a Case McCoy. Weird things happen in this game, and to have someone that has experienced, albeit a bad OU Texas game if you're on the crimson half of the Cotton Bowl, but a OU Texas environment. And the other thing too is that, yeah, it may have been a year, but he played that Texas front seven last year that was really freaking good. He played for a little bit that South Carolina front seven last year that was really freaking good. If you can somehow mold that experience without remembering all the bad and all that stuff, then I think that'll be important. And one of the keys here, Hoove, is we've seen once already this season, Ben Arbuckle have a elongated run-in, a big runway to prepare for a big-time defense or a big-time challenge. That was the fact that Oklahoma had all the time in the world to work on Michigan and do all the Michigan prep they wanted to early in camp and all that stuff. I'd say the results were pretty good. Now you straight up get this bye week, whether you're working on yourself for Texas, that's going to be valuable reps between Arbuckle, John Kuziewski, all that stuff, and Hawkins. They might do a walkthrough on Kent State, but that would even be probably a little bit overkill for Oklahoma next week. And you're going to have 2.5 weeks to focus on either yourself or Texas and no other distraction. I'm kind of intrigued to see what Ben Arbuckle cooks up, because I doubt it'll be what Seth Luttrell did last year, which was play to Oklahoma's weakness and play to Texas's strength off of a bye week.
You want to hear the strangest, most unexpected statistic or trend for the OU Texas game? I know they play Kent State, fine. But the OU Texas game, that statistic that I dug up, 12 years ago now, about when a first-year quarterback goes up against a quarterback who's played in this game before, the guy who's played in this game before almost always wins. I mean, the numbers are staggering how much an experienced quarterback in this game versus an inexperienced quarterback in this game leans toward the experienced guy. Guess who's the more experienced quarterback in this game? By far. Manning didn't play in this game last year. I didn't even realize that. So that could get interesting. Michael Hawkins played most, if not all, the entire game of the 34-3 loss. It wasn't a good experience, but it was what? Experience. So, I don't know. It's just a little trend you might want to watch.
Now, we have to keep in mind, Arch Manning did flex on a Sam Houston State defender. So, Aber, that does change everything.
This isn't Sam Houston State from even a few years ago. You know, they've changed regimes there. And Sam Houston State's a little bit different now, but the Cotton Bowl is just such a different environment from everything else you're going to experience that, to Hoover's point, experience in this game matters so much because of that difference. And, I'm not saying, bet the house on Oklahoma and Michael Hawkins or anything like that, because, while the experienced quarterback almost always wins, it's not every single time. And as much as Arch Manning has struggled against teams not named Sam Houston State, he's still Arch Manning and has that bloodline in him and still has the ability, but you'd much rather send a quarterback like Michael Hawkins into this thing having gone through it before versus if he was sitting behind Jackson Arnold last year in this game and not having experienced that atmosphere and just the vast difference from that from any other game, whether it's home or on the road.
It's interesting. This is a game that, and this is not an OU Texas preview pod. Last thought here, and then I'll get back into the run game stuff. But this is a game that, anyway, I was going to tell you guys, I would have picked a very low scoring game. These are two really, really good defenses. If you look at SP Plus, if you're a believer in that or not, stuff like that. But all it ends up doing is, I think, reinforcing that Texas is like the number 1 defense, and OU's the number 3 defense. So points are going to be at a premium. It's one of those spots where I think John Mateer is a better runner of the football, a more effective runner of the football than Michael Hawkins Jr. over the course of a 4-quarter experience. As far as I rely on Mateer being able to take a little bit more hits because he's just like a little bit stockier dude. He has shown that he can extend plays behind the line of scrimmage, things like that. He did technically hit a home run against Temple, but that was Temple. We saw it against Auburn last year that in a game where points might be at a premium, if you get one shot at your quarterback bursting to the open field to house call on a misaligned defense or the one time, in that scenario, I think I'd take Michael Hawkins' legs over Mateer's legs, which might be the only time I would take that. And then we saw that last year he was able to hit J.J. Hester on a big deep bomb against Auburn, the one time it all lined up. So it might be a similar spot to that where it's like, hey, man, no one's really expecting, I think, Mateer to put up 40 points against this Texas defense. No one's certainly expecting Michael Hawkins Jr. to put up 40 points against this Texas defense. You might just need 17 or 20, and you might just need to connect in 1 or 2 moments, which is something that Michael Hawkins, even without a quarterback coach and competent offensive coordinator, proved he could do a year ago on the Plains. So maybe you get that development. But the biggest thing that could help all of that, guys, is Oklahoma has to find a way to run the football with running backs. That's something that, Carson, you wrote about today. And the first thing's going to be, obviously, the offensive line has to get healthier. That was one of the struggles against Auburn. We talked about it, that the 2 of the 5 guys just could not move. Jake Michael and Fabechi Wiwu, they're going to have a big, long runway to get much, much better. But Carson, Deion Burks had some interesting stuff to say about Jaden Ott after the game. I think that a lot of people were just like, whatever with Jaden Ott. Is this now suddenly a big, big week against Kent State to say, like, hey, if you're going to force feed somebody, force feed him, because if he can somehow get his mojo back by running all over the place against Kent State, that would be a valuable asset for Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 9 carries for 17 yards for Jaden Ott at this point. We haven't seen his potential come out. I think a lot of fans have kind of given up, like, oh, okay, this guy came in and he's just not going to do a whole lot. Deion Burks hasn't given up on him. Ben Arbuckle hasn't given up on him. John Mateer, before the Auburn game, praised Jaden Ott, pretty much said he stayed really present, battled through some things, got here super late, doesn't even know everyone that well yet, but he still stayed present, done what he can to get back out there. And I mean, now is his time to shine. You look at Hawkins, sure, he probably is a lot better than he was last year. He definitely has a lot more talent around him, but he's still not the quarterback that John Mateer is. There's going to have to be some other ways to move the ball down the field, albeit against really good defenses like Texas. So if Ott could come in there, I mean, we've seen what he can do at Cal, especially in 2023, 1,300 yards of rushing, threat in their screen pass game, also a returner. He's lost his returning job, but that doesn't need to be his main thing. Just getting more touches, finding some holes against a albeit bad team like Kent State, I think could be huge, show that this guy still is an option. And if he does get the ball and he's still not effective, maybe it is kind of time to be like, okay, this is Torrey Blaylock's backfield, Javante Barnes, Xavier Robinson. But I think this is a big opportunity for him.
I think for me, sorry to jump in here, but I think for me, what Jaden Ott needs to do is perform better during the week, because it's very clear that Brent Venables, DeMarco Murray, the Ben Arbuckle, the people who make these decisions, don't trust Jaden Ott. I mean, you look at the carry numbers, the situations that we've seen him in so far, and I realize that he was banged up in the preseason, things like that. But they've shown that in leverage situations, they're not going to go with Jaden Ott. So he's got to show that, Monday through Friday to get that chance on Saturday. And, I think they need to, or they would certainly be, well helped if Jaden Ott does that and you're able to get him going against Kent State. But I think, if you're betting on it, I think it's much more likely that you feed Tory Blaylock and what we've seen from him both in the games, what, clearly the job that he's done in practices, things like that, to get those opportunities. They need to establish a running game somehow. I'm just not sure how quickly it can get to being a Jaden Ott production with what we've seen from him so far. Not that I'm giving up on him, but also I think some of the talk about him, what Deion Burke said the other day, what John Mateer and others have said, is because they get asked about Jaden Ott a whole lot more than some other players. Who I think back to the day, who was the defensive lineman that we ask about virtually every day, whose name completely just left my mind before the season, about 10, 12 years ago, the defensive lineman who didn't show up in time. I will remember it here.
Was it a big D tackle?
Yes.
Did he go play for the Raiders? Like Casey? I can't remember either.
Yeah, I can't remember. But the point is,
it was a transfer from Texas, right?
Yeah, or
he started at Texas and then left Texas, came in.
No, I think you're thinking about Devontae Lampkin.
That's who I'm thinking of, yeah.
But I think it was a different player.
Okay.
But
Casey Walker?
No, it wasn't. I'll think about it.
Okay.
But the point is, though, that there's these players that we focus on, fans focus on, that come in with this big hype that wind up fizzling out for whatever reason. Again, not saying that this is going to be Jaden Ott, but I wonder how much of what we've heard is just because, hey, they're not going to talk down about a player that they get asked about versus actual hype on the field. So, again, not saying that Jaden Ott won't be a piece of this team, but I think on balance, I would be much more comfortable with what Tory Blaylock has done and the progression we've seen from him versus relying on a guy who we haven't seen much of to this point.
Yeah, I think Tory Blaylock has done an amazing job of stepping in as a true freshman and into a crowded backfield and seizing his own snaps, saying these belong to me because I've earned them. Again, in a crowded backfield, we all thought Xavier Robinson was going to be the man. We all thought Taylor Tatum was going to be the man. Javonte Barnes should have been the man, but then Ott comes in and we all think Ott's going to be the man. And who is it? It's Blaylock. It's been impressive. And when it comes to Ott, I raised the question in my column last week, what the heck's going on? Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's revealing anything. So we get it. Something sensitive is happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. Is he sideways with DeMarco Murray? Because DeMarco can be a real hard ass when it comes to coaching his running backs, and deservedly so. Those guys need to be coached hard, like he was. That's his standard. He is his standard, and that's fair. That's 100% entirely fair. He's gotten the best out of a lot of guys that way. So, don't know if it's an NIL thing, like one of those deals where he got paid a bunch of money up front and he's okay with where he's sitting. We don't know. I'm not pointing fingers or accusing. I'm saying, what the heck is it? We don't know. So there's a lot of ways you can go with it. Certainly the injuries, and I think you're 1,000% right. The fact that he doesn't perform Monday through Friday ahead of Saturday's game, that is explaining, especially when it comes to pass blocking and blocking in general, that is explaining why he doesn't get any game action on Saturday.
By the way, Hoove, I remembered it. Quincy Russell.
Quincy Russell. Eesh. Don't remember,
you know
that one.
How big a story he was for?
I don't.
It was like a month long where we asked Stoops about Quincy Russell seemingly every time we talked to him, and
so that's like 2012, probably when my first year as a columnist, when I was in Stillwater all the time, right? Probably.
Yeah, probably so.
Covering the defending Big 12 champs.
Yeah, it was a burning question for quite a while before it finally fizzled out. I'm looking at a headline here from our buddy Jason Kersey from 2013. Can Quincy Russell save Oklahoma from defensive line disaster?
The answer is no.
Yeah, the answer was a resounding no. But again, not saying that that's Jade Knott, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
It's think if you go back through the late snaps for Jade Knott against Temple, where they're trying to run in his direction, he just totally olays a cornerback. That sticks out. I just wonder, Florida State ran for almost 500 yards against Kent State. For someone who, if it's a confidence issue or a mental hurdle of how do I get back into gear of work my butt off, stuff like that, I wonder if you get in there late against Kent State, find some success or something, suddenly you're feeling like yourself again, if that sparks a big time spark something in him on the practice field that helps him work his way back up and earn that. Look, man, I'm just looking for answers because it was 3 passes plus 1 that was taken off the board. I thought Michael Hawkins Jr. was flat out bad against Temple. I thought that his best play was one that Elijah Thomas got tackled, but he had missed Elijah Thomas on another one. He looked like a guy that was still throwing to spots and not throwing people open, or it's not the kind of spots of hey, the ball needs to go here. It's the, hey, I set the garbage can on the 20-yard line and the 30-yard line, and I have to dump it into that bucket and that bucket and that bucket. If that guy shows up in the Cotton Bowl, with the way that Texas defense is there, you're going to need defensive scores, I fear. But the good news is the flip side, that's also that he was in garbage time, so he wasn't actually running the offense. It was just we're going to let him take a shot here just to have a chance to take a shot here or there. That's why I'm so excited for this Kent State thing, to let him run the offense so you can actually see what gains Michael Hawkins Jr. has made, because he looked a lot better in the Armed Forces Bowl, but that was just Ben Arbuckle playing the role of quarterback coach as opposed to Ben Arbuckle helping build an offensive plan and all that stuff. Because as we know, guys, that was not the Arbuckle offense of the Armed Forces Bowl. That was Arbuckle stepping in and doing the offensive staff a solid because Kevin Johns was off to Stillwater.
Yeah, 2 really good drives to start that game and 1 really good drive to finish that game, and everything else in between was garbage for the Oklahoma offense last year in that bowl game. So Michael Hawkins surely learned from that. This was after the news that John Mateer had decided to transfer to OU. He knew that Mateer was coming to be the starter, and he knew that this was kind of his one final audition to impress the coaching staff, and then it was on to spring ball from there. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing how Michael Hawkins has progressed from that day as a runner and as a passer.
I'm curious to see the Kent State game because presumably OU is going to get a huge lead in this contest. I wonder if Whit Neubauer comes in. I want to see what he can offer by the worst case scenario that not only Mateer is hurt, but Michael Hawkins is hurt. What does Whit Neubauer bring? Obviously, they have Jet New too, but it's unlikely he's going to play as a true freshman. But Neubauer put up pretty good numbers at Mercer last year, started a lot of games for them. Granted, different level of competition, the FCS level, but someone that he's a different mold of quarterback than Hawkins is, bigger guy. I want to see what he can do, and I think he's going to be able to get that opportunity against a team like Kent State. Like I said, not going to be the closest game in the world. So I think it'll be good to see both of them, what they do in this Ben Arbuckle-led offense.
So Carson's calling for a quarterback controversy here.
Yep.
I think that we might see a lot of Oklahoma fans stroke out if Whit Neubauer has to play a significant snap, which would not be good. That is not what I'm rooting for. Not at all. One thing that will be interesting too is as we flip this thing over, so much attention being paid to Michael Hawkins. Here is the one little bit I'm most curious about. We saw the outpour of support Aber yesterday from whether it be the top at Jim Nagy to Grayson Holt and guys like that, everybody rolling out there. We support Michael Hawkins Jr. You got this big dog. Boom. On twitter.com or X, whatever. Who cares? Oklahoma just came out of a moment where John Mateer down 17-16 at home in a conference game zipped the Sooners straight down the field. And Aber, as much as we've asked or I asked Ben Arbuckle after the Temple game, when you have a smothering defense, what does that do as an OC to open stuff up and let you be more aggressive? I think the flip side is a defense, you go, we have a quarterback that's a gamer, one of those guys, right? One of the few that you can just say, we give him the football, he wins the football game. I think that belief is what Oklahoma was really building in John Mateer. This is a defense that is yet to force a turnover. Do we get into a situation where this defense maybe gets to the spot they were at times last year where it almost felt like we were concerned, are they going to try to do too much knowing that a year ago they had to score, they had to win the game by themselves? Because this defense has played so well. I truly still believe the turnovers are going to come if they just continue to play at that high level. Now it's going to be like the mental battle of just keep doing what you're doing, because if you deliver that level of play, whether it's Texas, South Carolina, however long Michael Hawkins Jr. is in this thing, Oklahoma's going to be in those football games.
Yeah, you've got to guard against trying to do too much, because we've seen what happens with that defense when they try to do that. And a lot of times they would, hold it off until the very end, and then everything would crumble. But going back to what you were talking about, sorry to flip this back onto the offensive side, but you talk about Hawkins and maybe the lack of touch on some of those passes against Temple. I mean, the new light that this paints that last drive in, knowing what Mateer was going through, the new light of that the throw to Satania on the sideline and the touch that he showed there is just incredible. And for some reason, well, not for some reason, John Mateer, was wearing a ring on his right finger in the post game presser, right ring finger, and I was sort of looking at his hand to try to figure out what kind of ring it was, what he was doing there. Didn't notice anything out of the ordinary at the time, but just one of those weird things to look back on, after we heard what we heard yesterday. But going back to the defense, to your original point, they do just have to keep doing what they're doing, because they've been very effective even without creating turnovers. I mean, you look at the third down conversion percentage, what was it, 17.9%, I think, just incredible. They've been really good against the pass. They've been really good against the run as well. And they've just got to keep doing those things. And then you add a guy like, Eli Bowen back into that equation, and you've got a chance to do some really special things. Not that there aren't still some questions about this defense, but you cannot just go out there thinking you've got to make plays like, we saw Kip Lewis make against Auburn and Alabama last year. You've got to be the hero, because when that happens, especially with young DBs in particular, but also younger players across the board, you can get over pursuit, break things into the open, and then you crumble quickly. So they've got to guard against that a little bit. Luckily, they've got a coach in Brent Venables who knows what he's doing a little bit, and you've got to think that he will drill that into them over these next couple weeks to try to prevent against that.
Yeah, if you happen to get the College Game Day podcast or whatever, not College Game Day, it's Kirk and notable just whiz savant of college football, Joey Callaway. It's the Aura ring. It measures some of the sleep and stuff like that, because apparently it just broke everyone's brain. And by everyone, I mean Joey Callaway, that someone could get 8.5 hours of sleep a night. That's just a stunning development, I guess, in 2025.
I'm looking forward to seeing the recovery time on Jackson Arnold, guys. Seriously, he got sacked officially 9 times. One sack, which would have been 10th, was attributed to a defensive penalty. Horse collar, sure. Another sack, which would have been 11, was declined by Brent Venables so he could take a penalty and push the ball back.
Which I disagreed with, but...
Yeah, well, it's either one in that situation. I think
I saw it either way.
It's a down or it's yardage. I think you take the yardage. But then he also carried the football 21 times. Bro woke up Sunday morning stiff and sore. So, yeah, Oklahoma's defense just gets after the quarterback. And here's the deal, guys. Auburn's offensive line, I wrote this earlier in the week. Ryan, you wrote the story about the O-line. 267 career starts. 6'5", 330 pounds is what those guys were. And there were 4 juniors. 4 seniors and 2 juniors. And OU just wiped the floor with them. Defensive line. They faced the best offensive line they might face all year, and they just wiped the floor with them. So, yeah, Texas right now probably doesn't care whether it's Hawkins or Mateer. They're probably thinking, "Oh, we got to figure out this OU defensive line."
It's Outland Trophy Player of the Week. Jaden Jackson to you, his 2.5 sacks. Not bad that you can be
SEC Defensive Player of the Week was a different defensive line.
Yeah, I was going to say, not bad that you can have the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week go to a guy who played 1/2 of football, R. Mason Thomas, and then the Outland Trophy Player of the Week can go to Jaden Jackson. David Stone in all this, I know he didn't have as many sacks as Jaden Jackson, but Stone and Jackson together both set personal career highs for tackles in one game. So it'll be interesting. We'll have plenty of time to break it all down because, guys, we're not talking about Kent State next week. I'm sorry. We're not doing it. We'll be talking about OU and all the adjustments they're making, OU in Texas, obviously. Little programming note, we'll talk to Brent Venables Thursday night. So we'll talk to Brent Venables and some select players on Thursday evening. Then I would expect we'll be back to our next Monday of Kent State week. That evening will likely be a night that we talk to some more OU players than the Brent Venables Bernard Buckle Pressers next Tuesday as this kind of develops, and we'll see what that looks like. It was a very busy day yesterday. Not only that, we got the SEC schedule. If you somehow missed it, I'm just going to rattle this off real quick, and then we'll get to the real fun. In 2026, Oklahoma will host Kentucky, Ole Miss, South Carolina A&M. They will go on the road to play Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, Missouri. Texas is in Dallas. That schedule will invert not in 2027, but in 2028. So they're split home and homes. The even years, 26, 28, flip that schedule. That's what they'll play in 28. In 27, we will cover games against Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee in Norman. Head to Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, and Vandy. Those games will flip in 2029. And then obviously have OU Texas still through all of that. So we won't go to Fayetteville till 2029. So everything SEC schedule release is up on the website, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Who and I already kind of talked about that a little bit. Just really quickly, Carson first. How do you like the split home and homes? Not just doing like the same team one year, next year, and then flipping it. You get the same everyone. You play everybody throughout a 4-year period. I don't know. I feel like in a mega conference, it feels like you see everybody every other year. So maybe you feel closer to everybody when you have 16 teams in a conference.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it does add just a little bit of fairness with how quickly college football teams change in this era between the transfer portal, players declaring for the draft. I mean, teams are going to look so much different in 2 years from the first meeting. So I think that part's really interesting. Part of me is a little bummed that the opponents don't flip immediately, so OU fans don't get to experience the road venue for some of the teams they host in 2026. But I mean, a takeaway I had is you get Gainesville and Athens in 2026. Sooner fans should be excited about those. Those are awesome places to watch games. I've been to Athens, one of the cooler environments I've been to. I've heard Gainesville's great. Starkville, Columbia, not the most exciting, but should be good games. I think it's pretty interesting. Just kind of cool to see some new opponents that OU has never played as SEC opponents.
Aber, you have one opportunity here to join make it unanimous and take a big old dump on Starkville.
Except for who I think it's Little Dewey in Starkville, the barbecue restaurant.
Okay.
Is legit.
Good.
And
I've been on the record previously on this pod today saying Starkville's not that bad. I've been there. It was fine. The cowbells are cool. Annoying as hell, but cool. Sure.
And literally everyone else is taking a shot at Starkville.
Everybody.
Prompted, everybody else is taking a shot at Starkville.
I will say, luckily for me, I've covered 2 games in Starkville, a football game, a men's basketball game. Neither one of them I had to stay the night in Starkville or anywhere close. It was the football game was a fly-in, fly-out situation. The basketball game drove, I believe, all the way to Little Rock after the game.
Wow.
With who you'll remember this, Harry King.
Of course.
Probably that name.
Yep.
And so I have not spent a night in Starkville, so I can't say that, but I've had much better experiences than most there. But fascinating part of the schedule. A little bit disappointing to see Arkansas be that trip to Fayetteville be at the very end
Yep.
of the rotation. It's wild to think how few times Oklahoma and Arkansas have faced off on the football field as close as they are. But I think that'll be really cool to see the Razorbacks in Norman. Certainly be really cool in 2029 to get them going up there. But I didn't mind the way that the schedule lined out. The Ole Miss thing was interesting, maybe a little bit surprising at first. But I think I talked with I think I mentioned it to you, Carson, when we were driving to the game the other day about the initial report about Ole Miss being the possibility. And, the Grove is an interesting place. Certainly, Lane Kiffin has Ole Miss in a much different position than they've been in quite a while. And that'll be a fun back and forth there. But was a little bit surprised at that one, but also glad it wasn't Florida because I never was a fan of Florida being one of their permanent rivals in the SEC.
Lane already has come out and said, I don't know why we got Oklahoma. We share nothing in common. It makes no sense. So thank you, Lane, content machine, Lane Kiffin.
Carson, with you having a degree from Texas A&M, having the immediately rotating next up schedule that they have, like skipping a year to rotate, I would have thought you'd love that with Texas A&M being one of those teams that when they joined the SEC, they never got the chance to play in Athens for like 12 years. Just the quirks and the expansion and the rotation and like, why don't these two teams ever play each other? They're in the same damn conference. Now that doesn't happen. They play everybody every other year. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, no, I definitely like this new scheduling format that it doesn't take that long. A&M's been in the SEC since 2012, and they've played Georgia once in Athens. They have not come to Kyle Field yet, so that's just pretty remarkable. Nice to see that OU gets to go against its former Big 12 opponent. That'll be a pretty cool game. Not necessarily rivals per se, but the fan bases don't love each other. Kyle Field's obviously a great atmosphere. I think OU fans will enjoy going back there. That stadium's changed a lot since those teams used to play there, so that'll be a cool trip. Really, there are a lot of cool places, though. I mean, Vanderbilt, the stadium's not great, but that's Nashville. That's a cool one for Sooner fans to go to. Lexington, eventually. I've heard great things about Lexington. So really, it is cool to just kind of get some new experiences with campuses. One of those being Athens next year. That's awesome. So there's a lot to look forward to with it.
Ryan, we just got a notification from On3. Pete Nackos reposted Lane Kiffin on playing Oklahoma for the next 4 seasons. Quote, yeah, Oklahoma is really disappointing. We don't have anything in common with them or our fans, so that doesn't make any sense at all. So that's unfortunate with so many great teams that we've played here for a long time, especially from our SEC West years. So that's unfortunate. Get on the main train, people.
I think, the good news is that he'll be at Florida next year, so it won't matter. It's I feel kind of bad for, I think Ole Miss and Oklahoma just ended up being the two teams with not like another dancing partner after LSU and Alabama. Alabama was like, yeah, we're not playing Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU every year. I know it's like the highest rated game in college football on average over the last 15 years, but that's not happening. And LSU's like, hang on. Can we just get Arkansas back on Thanksgiving? That's what we liked to do, and that was like something we were used to. And then you tried to make the A&M thing, so that's part of the quirks, and that's why the SEC will reevaluate it every 4 years, I suppose. So we'll get that going. One more bit of OU news before we just get into just Oklahoma news at large. Patty Gasso off and running. Think she can still recruit. The 2027 class, she picks up 2 commits yesterday. First one being Finley Williams, number 3 overall player per Softball America's rankings, number 1 overall outfielder. She is on track to be the Texas Player of the Year 4 straight years, I believe, if my counting is correct. She plays for the Texas Glory Travel Ball. If you know that name rattling around, that's where Jada Coleman and Riley Boone plied their trade in travel ball for a little bit. Then later in the day, she struck for Emma Reynolds. Emma rated, I think, 62nd maybe in the Softball America. Yeah, number 62 overall in Softball America. a top 15 middle infielder, top overall player in Arizona. She has one of her teammates in the 2026 class. Peyton Westra is a current 2026 commit for Oklahoma, so pretty familiar there. When Finley Williams committed, Oklahoma officially registered. Once you have 3 recruits, you can get ranked in the Softball America team rankings. They went to number 1 immediately, and then Reynolds only helped that. Aber there, Patty Gasso, stunner, off and running.
Yeah, zero surprise there. The Patty Gasso train keeps rolling right along, and I think for a lot of people who thought, hey, maybe their recruiting slows down after not winning the national championship, I think it's ridiculous a little bit, but saying, the dynasty is over, not so fast, as Lee Corso would say. Patty Gasso still bringing it, still, energetic on the recruiting trail. Obviously, had a big group of recruits in, the last couple weekends for, that OU Michigan game in particular. And Patty Gasso doing what Patty Gasso does, which is bring in some of the best players and develop these incredible pipelines between the programs. Like, obviously, we've seen the Bat Busters over the years, the Texas Glory, now in Arizona doing the same thing. And that's, the one of the reasons why she's been so successful is being able to develop those and continuing to tap into them and bring these players from all over the country who come here and, turn into some of the best players that college softball's ever seen. So I certainly wouldn't write Patty Gasso and company off anytime soon, because they keep just dominating on the recruiting trail, and this has been their best week in quite a while.
Yeah, Williams and Reynolds join Goose Hutchins, the number 2 overall player in the class, someone that Aber and I had the pleasure of. I think it was after a year ago, so not the 2025 season, but the 2024 season. If you guys remember, most of you probably freaking out that Oklahoma lost a regular season game to BYU. Aber and I were writing separate but similar stories about, please don't freak out because it makes our job harder. They ended up winning national championship either. There was a camp that Oklahoma was doing after. It was a very weird energy because they had just lost. Patty was not happy. Then they almost had to turn on recruiting coaching staff brain and host an elite camp type thing. Goose was not just rocketing balls over the fence at Love's Field. If you've been to Love's Field, there's the wall for the field, then there's the grandstands, then there's the concourse, and then there's the scoreboard and the back fence of the facility. Goose was rocketing not one hoppers, the ball to the back fence of the facility was careening off of that into the bushes. That's the kind of talent that Oklahoma already has. In-stater, Riley Hilliard's a top 15. And oh, by the way, Aspen Boulware, the number 1 rated recruit in the country, she's been posting a lot of stuff from the Team USA under 18s that she was in for. She was visiting this weekend at Oklahoma. It's you're already here for the U18s. Why not come through and visit? So if Patty Gasso could get that, that'd be the number 1, number 2, and number 3 overall players in the class, Aber.
And then Texas Tech comes in and drops a bag.
You never know, but
you never know.
It's this having Patty Gasso affiliated with Team USA. While there are obviously some complications there are also some big time benefits to it on the recruiting trail. And Patty Gasso, anytime she gets an edge, she can take advantage of that for sure. And Ryan, I was thinking about that, post BYU experience yesterday, and just sort of having to take time and sit there and watch the bombs going out of Love's Field, because it wasn't something that you could ignore and write off, because they were massive, and it was fun to watch. And again, like I've said several times here, Patty Gasso just keeps rolling right along with that program.
So be sure, OklahomaSearsOnInside.com. I've got the commit breakdowns for both of those, all that fun stuff. We'll be on the Bullware beat. I believe she's a Florida State legacy, so she's not going to make a decision regardless until she visits Tallahassee. Georgia involved there, I believe. Texas Tech, obviously, as well. So that one's a straight up, that's not a Patty Gasso recruitment that we know, hey, Kinnigaski stopped recruiting Goose a little while ago because he's like, once she can officially commit, she's going to be an OU commit, like that. Not that kind of thing, but we'll see. Patty Gasso, we know this. Once she has her sights set on something, she usually is going to do everything she can to make that happen. So we'll see there. Oklahoma Sooners onsi.com is the place to be. Ton of content, obviously, from everything Mateer, the commits, everything Michael Hawkins Jr., Oklahoma defense, all that fun stuff. Oklahoma Sooners on si.com. And if you happen to look and scroll through, there was also a story that had Bedlam in it. And you may go like, well, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, they don't play football anymore. Why is that there? Well, Mike Gundy got canned on Tuesday. This officially closes the book on the OU conversation. If you want to leave, go for it. I get it. We'll be back on Wednesday. But this is like a monumental day in like state sports history to have Gundy get canned and then the Mateer news happen hours later. We weren't just going to ignore it, especially as between Hoover and Aber, one of you at the World, one of you at the Oklahoman, a lot of tentacles that intersect and all that stuff. Kind of wild. Not wild that Mike Gundy got fired. He has been one of the worst coaches in college football the last 2 years or year plus 3 games. Also, it's not a sad thing. Sports endings are often not glorious. Very rarely do you get to like go out winning a championship. He's going to make $15 million to not work. So I think using the phrase sad is a little overblown, but kind of gnarly that they had a whole Saturday to news dump it, a whole Sunday to try and news dump it, and they let Mike Gundy go and do a press conference on Monday because Oklahoma State is right now a terribly run athletic department.
Yeah, poor foresight by Oklahoma State brass, Board of Regents, president, athletic director, to go out of that weekend. You had an extra day. They played Tulsa on Friday, got embarrassed on national TV on a Friday. So you had an extra day, Saturday, to address that, Sunday to address that. Monday rolls around, you still haven't addressed it. Mike shows up for his press conference, does a great press conference, one of his better press conferences he's had in a while. Very engaging, very forthright, talking about all the problems, talking about his future, talking about all kinds of things that put yourself in our shoes. We would never got that level of stuff, of content or forthrightness or whatever out of an Oklahoma coach over the last 20 years, 25 years. It just, the OU coaches don't talk about stuff like that. Mike Gundy's just like, open mouth, flap jaws. He'll talk about anything. So I thought that was very entertaining, very engaging press conference. But then Tuesday rolls around and you still haven't addressed it. It's like, Mike, can you meet with us in here? We're having a meeting, athletic director's office. Come on in. Here's what we're doing. And Mike's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to announce my retirement at the end of the year. I don't want you to fire me with cause or anything like that. He's taking advantage of the 3 years left on his contract, which is his right. And he's also leveraging his legacy. Again, his right. So I just think, you're right. It's not sad. It's unfortunate that a guy of his stature and everything he's done for Oklahoma State over the last 40 years almost can't go out the way he wants to go out. It's too bad.
Yeah, I also think about, the comments that we saw from Cale Gundy yesterday.
Yeah.
About, Mike's not done coaching and I'm going to go with him. And, you can say all you want. Obviously, there's a lot to break down about the way that Cale Gundy's tenure at Oklahoma ended. But the one thing you cannot criticize from him at all is his recruiting. He was phenomenal at the wide receiver position, at the running back position for so long. I mean, you just look at the list of guys that he brought in and, the production that they had. And that'll be fascinating if Mike Gundy can evolve into this new landscape of college football. Really, if either of them can, but Mike in particular, I think is maybe a little bit harder to crack there. But it's going to be really interesting to see where they wind up and how that winds up working, because it could be something that could go, pretty good, or it could be something that could just, go up in flames really quickly, not the exact same, but Les Miles at Kansas.
Yep.
A lot of famous coaches at Kansas that they've tried to go through there, because Charlie Weiss was the next one that I thought of. But, several guys like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Mike Gundy's next turn ultimately winds up being.
7-26 in his career all time as a player, as an assistant coach. 7-26 against Oklahoma. Not good by any measure, except by the fact that nobody else before him at Oklahoma State had that kind of success against OU. 4-15 as a head coach. 4-15. You say that's terrible. For Oklahoma State standards, that's actually pretty good. Four wins in 19 years had never been done before against the Sooners. So I think we're going to miss him as media because he was entertaining and engaging in those press conferences. We did a press conference one time, 2013, 14. And then I went over across the street to a baseball game. He shows up at the baseball game. We ended up sitting together for about 6 innings, just shooting the bull down in the third row right behind home plate, just shooting the bull. Two guys talking, baseball, sports, media, football, whatever it was. Just a cool guy, just fun to be around, fun to talk to. And I think the state of Oklahoma is a little bit lesser without Mike Gundy in it.
It's just like we don't have to do this. And sorry to Hoover and Aber. Carson, you and I do not know Big 12 football without Mike Gundy being a central figure in it. Really, I have a few memories of Les Miles at Oklahoma State, but not like fully developed ones of for a generation. We do not know Oklahoma State football or college football without the personality that is Mike Gundy and the Cowboys.
No, it really is surreal thinking about that. Just how different the Big 12 looks from when Mike Gundy started at Oklahoma State, how different college football as a whole is since he started at Oklahoma State. And where does Oklahoma State go from here? Do they go for a younger type coach? Do they go for a bigger name that's done it? I think best for them. I mean, this game has changed so much. They need someone that cares about Oklahoma and cares about that university. Somebody like a GJ Kinney, maybe. He's been great at Texas State, former Tulsa quarterback. Obviously, Zach Robinson's a name you're going to see thrown around quite a bit with him being a very good quarterback for them in the past. So curious to see the direction they go, but kind of reminds me of when ASU was in a pretty similar situation a few years ago. And it was like, who is going to resurrect this program and who's someone that you can hire that cares about this school? They found Kenny Dillingham, who obviously he's an alum there. He's really young, can resonate with the players. I think for a program like Oklahoma State, that is not just your best job. That's not the most sexy job in college football. You need someone that specifically loves that program, has some youth, because that's really, I don't want to say the only recipe to winning in Stillwater, but there aren't a whole lot of avenues to have a successful program. And I think that's the blueprint they should follow.
Well, I think we forget this is not a Sisters of the Poor operation. There are very few ways to elevate your plight in college football. Texas Tech is getting one of them right now with Cody Campbell pumping money in. T. Boone Pickens donated hundreds of millions of dollars to Oklahoma State athletics. At one point, it was like Oregon and OSU trying to be the ones that rise. That is a great fan base. They've got fantastic facilities. Chad Weiberg was emphatic that they've got the resources necessary to compete, not be like Oregon, Texas Tech, Georgia, stuff like that in the NIL and stuff like that. If you just embrace college football and embrace the changes, I think we saw not too long ago in the Big 12, there was a legend who was unceremoniously dumped out before the end of the season. Gary Patterson, gone. How are you ever going to replace Gary Patterson? Sonny Dykes took TCU to a national championship game. There's a place that Gary could have probably taken them in an old model that allowed a little bit more participation at the championship level. But a place that technically, TCU had not gone before. I don't think this is a woe is me operation. It's just a head coach who would refuse to embrace stuff and who maximized it until he didn't. And that's why he's fine. The biggest drain on Oklahoma State's resources in the last 2 years has been that they're paying top dollar for a guy who is producing some of the worst results in college football. So this should be a hope situation, a new hope for Oklahoma State fans, because there was a time that maybe you couldn't get better than Mike Gundy. They haven't beaten an FBS team since they beat Tulsa last year. Give me a break. This is any of those coaches would come in and immediately do a better job than what Gundy was doing because he refused to adapt to college football, which makes him wanting to coach interesting. Bill Belichick, an older coach taking over, that's not quite gone very well. So we'll see what the next step is for Mike Gundy. Let's close here.
Maybe Mike can coach at Clemson. Campbell can coach at Oklahoma State. They could keep the same color going. And
They could also just way undersell everything. Hey, why are we held to a different standard, Dabble? Well, maybe because you're paid like Kirby Smart and you're winning like Dave Dorian.
I was just going to say, Ryan, that are you comparing Mike Gundy to Darth Vader now with the New Hope line?
Well, we did something a little bit different on radio. It was not quite that. I don't know how we got on the slant, but we were talking about Yes We Can, which then led us to Hope, which then led us to Forward, because our good friend Daniel Bell, an OSU alum, was trying to find a way out of this, and I was trying to just roll through. I don't know how we ended up on just like Obama campaign monikers and things like that, but that's just what it like ended up with. So we were trying to find the Hope candidate, which was literally anyone but Mike Gundy, and there's a lot of names out there. One that was tossed around a couple weeks ago after Oklahoma State was unceremoniously dismissed by Oregon, a team that, again, at one point they were kind of like on the same plane with, and now they're not even close. Mike Gundy's doing. You think that Ben Arbuckle certainly is going to be a hot name around? If you're Ben Arbuckle and you're looking around, right now the jobs that are open, Virginia Tech, UCLA, Oklahoma State, jobs that could come open, Florida, Kentucky, let's see, where else across just this Arkansas, although I think Bobby Petrino is going to like knife somebody to make himself just totally like time is a flat circle, but we'll see there. Is this a job you would be
away from a motorcycle?
Yeah, well, keep Pittman away. Keep Pittman away
Keep him away from the interns.
Pittman needs to have 2 axles minimum and only old people around him for the rest of this year. If you're looking around, if you're giving career advice to Ben Arbuckle, wait, hang on, or is Oklahoma State a good spot? Because regionally connected, I think that they're going to have some momentum on the NIL front. Again, not like tech NIL, but no one's expecting to be tech NIL, just as far as like they want to get this thing right and get this thing up and running. Is that a thing that would be appealing to a Ben Arbuckle?
I thought about this earlier in the podcast. I'll go ahead and say it. Oklahoma and Texas right now have the 2 best defenses in the SEC. Think about that. Let that sink in for just a second. Where those programs were defensively 5 years ago. They're now 1 and 2 in the SEC. With those guys in the SEC, that opened the door for what? We said it at the time. Well, Oklahoma State can dominate this conference. This is Oklahoma State's opportunity to take over the Big 12. Didn't happen. They went the other direction instead. So, yeah, if you're Ben Arbuckle and Oklahoma State comes knocking on your door and says, hey, how's $5 million a year sound to be a head coach in Stillwater, Oklahoma? Sounds pretty good. So, yeah, absolutely. That's an offer that he would entertain and needs to, for sure.
Yeah, I think you at least listen to him, and that's the kind of program that's a good place to get your sort of foot in the door with being a head coach, and really, even for a second stop, it's not a bad one at all. It's fascinating to hear some of the other names that have been connected. It was just reading through several like candidates files, obviously different levels of knowledge among those, but saw Justin Fuente's name listed. I thought a fascinating one was Eric Morris, the coach at North Texas, who was Washington State's offensive coordinator that brought John Mateer there.
Yep.
And fascinating to hear him connected to it. So Jeff Traylor from UTSA being another one who seemingly pops up in every one of those conversations the last couple days. So it'll be fascinating to see what direction this coaching search takes. But if Ben Arbuckle keeps doing the things that he's doing so far in Norman, this is not going to be the last time that we're going to talk about him as a head coaching candidate. It's just going to be a matter of what that job is that ultimately pulls him away. And that's what you want, a big time program. You want in your coordinators to be that springboard to the next level for them. And, Ben Arbuckle certainly looks like he could be that kind of guy so far at OU.
Yeah, before the Auburn game last week, I actually talked to Jordan Rogers, former Vanderbilt quarterback, host on SEC Nation. He is very confident that Ben Arbuckle won't be in Norman for too long, just because of how well it's gone so far, how well he's adjusted his knowledge to the SEC. That is not an easy thing to do, and I think a lot of teams I think all three will at least consider maybe we should reach out to this Ben Arbuckle guy. He's going to field plenty of offers, and I mean, from a Arbuckle perspective, you could argue Oklahoma State's most desirable. Virginia Tech's a great program, some history there. He doesn't have a whole lot of East Coast connections. UCLA, beautiful area. He's, yes, been in the former Pac-12. UCLA just doesn't have a great fan base, though. Football is not the big thing there. My brother goes to UCLA Law. He went to A&M for undergrad, now goes to UCLA. He's like, what is this fan support? Like, people do not care about UCLA football here. So I'm not sure that Arbuckle, someone from the panhandle of Texas, really would explore that. But I mean, if they could pay him enough, I think the Big 12's so open these days. You see teams like Arizona State, TCU, Baylor. All of a sudden, these are some of the better teams in the conference. Where did this come from? There's no reason to think that if Ben Arbuckle did take over at Oklahoma State, that they couldn't consistently be one of the better programs in that conference. Could also be a springboard for his next job, whatever that could be. So I think it's one of those things that he has a lot of season left. I don't think that's going to be his main focus. And like Ryan said, there's going to be more jobs, maybe more desirable jobs come open. So interesting to see how that will fold out. But I don't think that's his main focus right now.
Could see dominoes too if Florida comes open and then Lane Kiffin goes there. Now Ole Miss. If Shane Beamer goes back to Virginia Tech because things are not going well at South Carolina. It's just always fascinating, and I'm always curious. Like we heard for so long from Bob Stoops, he valued having Boren and Castiglione and everything in lockstep. Like at UCLA, their admin's having to give cash payments over to Cal, basically, all that stuff. Chad Weiberg doesn't have a contract right now, and he's running a head coaching search. I don't know. I might settle for some admin that's got their ass together behind the scenes, but we shall see. All right, this has been a monumental, massive 300th episode here. He's done it. Hooves made it happen on the Sooners on SI podcast. So glad that you came to hang out with us. We'll have continued updates, all that fun stuff from Everything Mateer, all that. But for the podcast, episode 301 will be next Wednesday. Follow us, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. Make sure you're hitting us up. We're on Facebook, Oklahoma Sooners on SI, Sooners on SI on the Twitterverse, all that fun stuff. But before we depart, who have you opened us up? You can close us down here as we move off into episode 301 next Wednesday.
Thanks to Parker. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Randall. And thanks to you guys for making this thing happen. 300 episodes. Very proud to be sitting behind this camera, this microphone, being able to do this for as long as we have. We're on 5 years now. We're not going to stop now. We're not even close to being done. As long as we're getting talented guys like Carson, like Ryan. Are you kidding me? Come on. This thing's just getting started. So appreciate all of you guys. Keep listening, keep watching, keep reading. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. See you guys.